2+2 is proud to bring you the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
This week on the Pokercast, Jean Robert Bellande, Dan Idema, and guest host Joe Tall. Now, here they are. One of them is the best poker player in their family. The other one is Adam. Adam and Joe!
Welcome, everybody, to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. We are in a new location, an undisclosed location, or, well, it's my house. Let's just call it my house. We're not at the studio this week. I'm interested to hear from people who listen to the show regularly what they think of the sound quality. So if that's something you could chime in with and let us know what you thought of the sound quality in the recording this week in the show thread, that would be great.
Be nice.
Yeah, this week...
constructive, not...
Destructive.
Yeah.
This week, our permanent co-host, Terrence Chan, is, of course, going deep in... Oh, by the way, the intro off the top is in reference to my brother, of course, winning his third World Series of Poker bracelet. Proud big brother moment for sure.
This dude just did this.
He just did that. And we're going to hopefully talk to him later. Terrence is now deep at the final table of the 10K Limit Hold'em event at the World Series of Poker, so he's unable to join us for a full show this week. He is going to stop by, talk a little bit about his run, and some of the stuff the other stuff that went on, specifically his wrestling match with Huck Seed. So if you want to hear what happened there, tune in a little bit later. But this week, so our co-host is going to be an old friend who's been co-host here in the show before, Mr. Joe Tall. Joe, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How do I introduce you now? This is you are the... title?
I am the director of fantasy sports for BetAmerica.com.
For BetAmerica.com. Speaking of fantasy sports, it was an interesting... It's great when I get a co-host who can talk sports, too, because Ross couldn't care less about the U.S. Open, and neither could Terrence. So somebody I could talk to about it. I thought... and it does have a fantasy sports tie-in. Of course, the U.S. Open this week at Chambers Bay, which the golf course took a ton of abuse. I thought completely undeserved, because I'm a Northwest guy and I've played the golf course before, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but suck it up and play golf. Quit complaining about bumpy greens or whatever. Everybody's got to play on them. Anyway,
I did see that clip on SportsCenter.
You did? Yeah.
People freaking out.
Oh, the golfers were going nuts. So it gets down to 18, and DraftKings has their $1 million tournament, the $1 million first prize tournament, $27 to enter. And I actually did enter one entry, but it came down to 18, and Jordan Spieth was in the house at 5 under par. Dustin Johnson hit a 5-iron on a par 5 on 18 to about 10 feet for eagle, and if he makes it, he gets to 6 under and wins the tournament. There was a...
makes it, he wins.
He makes it, he wins.
For push.
Right.
For tie, and then 3-putt for the loss. Yep.
3-putt for the loss. 2-putt, if there's a tie, they play 18 tomorrow. Right at the top of the DraftKings leaderboard was a player who, it was his very first time he'd deposited, very first time he'd played.
First tournament.
He played one entry into this
Moneymaker-like story.
It is a Moneymaker-like story. The guy in second who had Dustin Johnson, so the guy in first has Spieth, the guy in second has Johnson. So it turns out whoever wins the golf tournament, the guy in first is going to win. This casual player is going to win the $1 million. If Johnson wins the tournament, this pro named Head Chopper, I believe, is going to win. And he's well-known pro DFS player. He had 50 entries, I believe. If Johnson wins the tournament, he's going to win the $1 million. Now, second place is $100,000, so it's a pretty big bubble. It's not
that's DraftKings marketing strategy, which is a totally separate debate.
It is. But, I think back to the Party Poker Million I've talked about on the show before. The very first Party Poker Million cruise, they guaranteed, of course, $1 million for first, and second place was $90,000. And it's really similar. Like
and that was limit, and Mike Schneider won it?
No, Kathy Lieber won it.
Oh, Kathy Lee won. It was still limit, though.
It was limit, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
the second week in a row we've referenced the party.
It is, yeah. Jesus, I got to quit telling the same story right now. But anyway, so Dustin, of course, has the 10-footer for eagle to win the tournament, and 3-putts it for he misses the first putt, misses the 4-footer coming back, and this casual player wins the $1 million fantasy experience.
Yeah, actually, what's amazing about that, and I'm just going off the top of my head without looking it up, I believe that actual putt to Dustin Johnson was worth about $725,000.
Right.
Whereas the head chopper was worth $900,000.
Which makes
a daily
zero
fantasy
sense.
contest.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And then you know what? It's going to be soon. It's going to be worth more, than first prize, right? I mean, this is a growth industry.
The differential shouldn't be, hopefully, but yes,
you're right. Yeah, no kidding. It's a fantastic story but lots of press that fantasy sports got from that. Can't be anything but a good thing, Joe.
Oh, it's just I got a little bit of a gamble, a little bit of maybe foresight. I put myself 3 years ago into a position post Black Friday in the daily fantasy industry, and
right.
I feel pretty comfortable right now.
You co-hosted the show probably, I want to say, maybe 8 or 9 months ago. And yes. That's an eternity in these industries, right? I mean, that's a long time. And I remember the one quote that you said that we talked about when we were discussing daily fantasy was that daily fantasy has a velocity issue, and it's one of the biggest problems for daily fantasy that the sites can't churn the money through fast enough like they can with poker to support these giant advertising budgets and these projections for the industry. Do you see, has anything changed at all in the 8-butts?
Not too much, but there's definitely projects that are coming down the line that should change. It's still very early in the industry. I've been quoted in the past of trying to equate it to poker, and online poker in 2003 was pretty incredible, and then by 2006 it was awesome.
Right.
And then we had a little bit of hit with Ouija, but by 2008, with Pokerstars in full tilt on the rise, it was absolutely nuts again.
Right.
So the thing about daily fantasy is there's two things that are quite different. One, everybody has the internet now, as compared to 2003. Two, we all have it on our phones.
Right.
Nobody had it. Can you imagine the online poker boom if we all could have played party poker on our phone in 2001?
Crazy.
Can you imagine what the online poker boom would have been if you could have played Pokerstars Full Tilt and Party Poker on your phone in 2006?
Or your tablet, where you could play more than one game.
Just in your hand.
Yeah.
Isn't that when the first iPhone came out?
I want to say
it did, but obviously the Party Poker app.
I like how you've shortened UIGEA to Ouija.
Ouija,
yeah,
that's the nomenclature.
I like shortening things. Do you know? I heard the other day that it's less syllables to say World Wide Web than it is to say www.
That's good.
So a lot of people talk about the poker boom, and the other thing that's not talked about enough. Oh, what's wrong with online poker? What's wrong with poker now? It's dead. What's happening? The peak of the U.S. economy in the last 20 years happened to coincide directly with the poker boom.
Right.
Yeah.
Never thought of that.
People don't correlate the two. That's a ton of money, and now the money just goes away. And at the same time, you got the online legal landscape changing, and you have a massive vacuum.
Yeah. Indeed.
And what we're actually seeing now is the return of the U.S. economy. And I'll tell you right now, the cash games are phenomenal in the live space.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems
and even the high-stakes guys that I chum with have, the burden on my shoulders saying, guess what? Cash games are back. There's some people that have showed up after a few years. And it's directly correlated with the return, slowly, of the U.S. economy.
It's unfortunate that we didn't have the return of online poker to the U.S. to correlate at the same time. That's just that would have been when you talk about another boom. Maybe if by now 35 states had online gaming or online poker with shared liquidity pools, that we'd have that second online poker boom, but doesn't seem to be happening.
Well, California just had a huge hearing.
Right.
And I don't even know, is that in your notes here, dude?
It isn't. We're not going to talk about that. There's just so much other stuff to get to.
Okay, so California just had a huge hearing, literally directly about online poker. You're better off bringing on Chris Grove to talk about it because he was actually there.
Right.
But you can catch up with some of his reporting and chase him on Twitter. But as an industry person working in iGaming for an iGaming company that does legal internet gambling in the United States that's also based in California, of my opinion, we won't see any real action. And it is all about California right now. Let's be honest. Like it's the 10th largest economy in the world.
Right.
Not in the United States. Like it's by itself. It's larger than most of the countries in the world. So clearly the mark is in all the eyes for online poker are facing California, and deservedly so. And in 2020, and I'll just quickly say this, and you can bring Chris Grove on in a later time. You should, because it should be an interesting story. In 2020, several of the tribal gaming packs will expire.
Oh.
And at that time, there may be a nice, big, ripe window for something to change. And that's all I'm going to say there.
Okay.
It seems to correlate with the timeline. I hate to say it's only 5 years late. The problem with everybody wanting U.S. online poker is that they have the internet mindset of, I can just Google this and get this now. So online poker, online, everything wins. Let's get it tomorrow. And you have the old guard who still does everything really slowly.
Indeed.
So the people that are actually running the show are on the snail's pace.
Yeah.
And the people wanting it are Google this, get me this now.
One click away.
Yeah, one click away. So that's enough of that. But we have the World Series of Poker here. You've got a good show lined up, so let's
jump into it. Before we do that, I want to say one quick thing. Rest in peace, Dick Van Patten, who passed away this week. Joe, were you in 8 is Enough, or was that your show? Or
no, I was a Cosby kid.
You're a Cosby kid. Oh, so it's 8 is Enough before your time.
Yes.
Dick Van Patten, of course, the father of World Poker Tour announcer Vince Van Patten. Dick was. I guess I'm a little older and was more the into the 8 is Enough. But all right, before we get on to the World Series stuff, I just want to get everybody to stand up and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No.
And why did we do that?
Oh, nice.
I thought you were going to read the Scout speech today.
So at the seniors tournament at the World Series of Poker last week, the mic was handed to one Oklahoma Johnny Hale, who, of course, is one of the old school professionals in the poker world that everybody kind of celebrates. And he decided to hand the mic off to his, I believe it was his daughter, who asked everybody in the field.
Wait, how old?
Well, he's old, so I imagine she's not, young or anything. But
if it was a child, it must be a grandchild.
Maybe it was a grandchild. I don't know. Anyways, he handed the.
Because it's a weird thing to hand off to your adult daughter and be like,
"Here you go."
Yeah, it's allegiance.
So she, or whoever it was, proceeds to ask everybody to stand up and pledge allegiance to the flag of the U.S. Now, yes, this is in the United States, but the field is made up of more than Americans, and it was a bit weird, a bit awkward that especially the Pledge of Allegiance. It's not like it was the anthem or something where you can, of people from other countries will take a hat off and respect the song, but you're asking people to say they are pledging their allegiance to a flag and one nation under God, etc. So interesting to say the least. Got to get a little kick out of that. Let's get on to some of the World Series of Poker events and what happened. Let's go back to last week before we, or the end after we did last week's show and talk about who won. Event 34, 72-year-old Andre Boyer of Canada wins the $1,500 split format Hold'em, his second bracelet ever. He's, of course, the patriarch of the Quebec poker player contingent, including Jonathan Duhamel and others. In Event 35, my aforementioned brother, Dan, wins the 3K horse, $261,000, his third bracelet, moving him into second all-time among Canadians with bracelets right behind, somewhat behind Daniel Negreanu with six bracelets as well. Daniel's coming for you. Daniel's coming for you. Look at that. 36, Event 36 Southern USA Grinder. Corey Wunstill wins the $1,500 PLO, $267,000. His first bracelet. Event 37, Brian Caverman. He wins the prestigious $10,000 No Limit Hold'em 6-Max for $657,000 and his first bracelet.
That was a great final table.
That field was
that's sick, right?
I just remember walking to the Rio and looking over that field and just being like, "What the hell? I would ever play that."
You need to be a wizard to win that one for sure.
38 so painful
was won by Thiago Nishijima from Brazil, who wins the $3,000 No Limit Hold'em, $546,000 for his first bracelet. The rail. Apparently for that was
Brazilians
nutso.
are very crushing the rails this year.
Yeah, they were just out of control.
I think the Brits had them alcohol dependent in the past.
The Brits haven't shown up anymore. They're not here in numbers like they used to be.
Brazil is crushing the rails.
They like to party.
Stay.
There was apparently Scooby-Doo was in the audience for that one again. So yeah, it was good. Event 39. Brian Hastings wins his second bracelet of the year at the World Series of Poker, taking down the $1,500 10-game event, putting some more hurt on some of his peers. He definitely had the bracelet bets that he's won, but he also has bets with people who enter the same event as he does, where they say, okay, $15,000 for a cash, $15,000 for a final table, $15,000 for a bracelet. So if he wins a bracelet, $45,000 against that player. So I know he does have. So he put a little bit more hurt on some people for sure. We're going to talk about Brian a lot more in depth. Coming up after some of the stuff that we do here. Event 40, Travis Baker of Oklahoma beats out a massive field of 4,193 entrants for the seniors event that we talked about. He calls himself a weekly tournament player, I think at Choctaw. He barely qualified. He's only 50 years old. The best was his quote, though, after he won the event. He said, "I'm an old man. I need to go take a nap now."
I love it. What was incredible with WSOP, what they actually did is they put the seniors event during EDC.
Right.
It's genius.
And the super
I don't know what
seniors.
took them so long to do that, but yeah. So,
but I did see
the Electric Daisy Carnival, which a lot of the young poker players go visit and do their kind of hippie event.
Right, because if they have a regular event that week, they're not going to get the turnout because everybody's going to be at EDC.
Yep.
Yeah, good job, World Series of Poker. Event 41, Max Pescatori of Italy joins the rarefied air of people with 4 or more bracelets, taking down the 10K stud high-low. He bid out 111
Second bracelet of the series.
Second bracelet. Him and Brian both have 2 bracelets and hilariously are in 5th and 4th after that tournament in the Player of the Year standings, even though they have 2 bracelets. He beat out 111 entrants to win $292,000.
I was one of the 111.
Oh, I guess. You played that event, the 7-stud high-low?
Yes, I did. I played with Max on my final day. He actually took me out in my final hand.
Oh, did he? How does Max play? Give us a little take.
Max actually plays okay. I think he actually plays stud high-low better than he plays 7-card stud.
Okay.
He was actually also at my table in the 10K 7-card stud event. But I don't want to talk about me because I'm 0-7. So,
let's move
Max,
on.
You know what's funny? I talked to Max a ton. I had no idea. He's a big horse racing guy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when I made day 2, actually sitting with him on day 1 for hours, it just came up, and I'm like, I work for an online horse racing company. He was well aware of my company, one of the very rare people that were.
Yeah.
And he got into all sorts of horse racing tournaments as well, and just he's a nice, friendly guy.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Max, but in the poker world, that's always great. I think he's great for the game. So, I was very, very fun to play with him for the hours that I was there.
I never understood horse racing. I mean, I'd go and I used to gamble on it but I never won. When I was a kid, I'd go in the horse races. My dad liked to go, so I'd go. But it's basically, think of a poker game with a 20% rake on every hand.
Yeah, 18, yeah.
And then, depending where you are, or I guess what you bet on, the triactors or whatever, the trifectas you call them, are going to have a higher rake. But I mean, and then they talk about people that actually beat horse racing, and I'm wondering how can anybody beat a 20% rake?
He would play tournaments, which is a separate thing.
How does that work?
It's simple. Like you, me, and Ross all cough up like $1,000 each, and then we take a look at the horse racing slate for the day.
Oh, it's a daily fantasy type thing.
Yeah. Yep.
I see.
And you pick, like, we're going to pick the 6 races at Churchill, the 7 races at Del Mar, and, whoever comes up with the fictionary, the most return, scoops the pot.
Well, why would anybody bet at their track when they can do that for much less rake?
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where, it's a lot of money to run. I mean, you got horses that need stables and people to take care of them, and then you need this large facility to race them.
Yeah.
So like everybody's like, oh, how can you beat that 18%? Well, it's just needed to pay for it.
Right. Yes.
I mean, that's like they're horses. You need to keep them somewhere. They're not like,
they
it's
eat.
not, the deck of cards just is a deck of cards.
They're not World Series dealers. You
got to take care of them.
I got actually stomped in that thread. I made a snidey comment.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just someone came out and kind of made a snarky comment, like, low wage worker thing, and I just replied like, you couldn't deal one orbit of PLO.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's all I said. I'm like, you could not deal one. You know what's funny? Because I can't.
Right.
So, and I can play the game, and I played PLO last night in the dealer's choice. But like,
how much is in the pot?
I kind of calculated the pot, but like not the way those dealers can.
Yeah, they're quite good at it. No question.
Like they just like 37.25. Like,
right. Why? How do you not know that? Right.
It's like bet 3-bet and his blinds and like what?
Yeah.
And then so that's the thing is like people give them a hard time, but it's really not like a low wage job. It's not.
No, they're paid fairly well. Let's face it.
They're paid okay. I think WSOP has them at like the minimum.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the tips are like, but I'm sure there's some good ones, and they must chop up some.
It sounded like they were making mid-20, 20 plus an hour.
Yeah.
People love to beat the crap out of the WSOP and its organization, but like they put 20,000 people through the Colossus. Like,
yeah.
Good luck. I could give you all the resources in the world. We'll give you event planners, whatever.
You'll never do
it. And
like,
you got no chance. Like, seriously. I mean, I even like know enough people, and it would be tough to pull it off. Like, they're actually doing a pretty good job. Like, yeah, the cards suck. I mean, I see that's on your slate.
Yeah,
here too.
we'll definitely talk about that.
It's a different story, but like, you got to give them some credit. Like, those guys kicked.
No question.
Every night.
I think a lot of people. It's not a case of they do a terrible job all the time. I think it's just people love the tournament so much, and when something as egregious as and we'll get into the card thing later happens, and it's not instantly rectified. It's sort of shocking and upsetting. But poker players are known to be quite ornery at the best of times.
There's also 64 tournaments, right? So, and I think you're at 41 on your list, 42 on your list.
We're going to get to 42. The $1,500 extended play no limit hold'em. Austrian Adrian Appman beats out one of the poker world's most beloved individuals, Barney Boatman. We had him on the show last year from the World Series. And Adrian takes down. Barney ends up finishing third. Adrian takes down his first bracelet, 478,000, by beating out a huge field of 1,914 runners. Extended play, no limit hold'em. Again, another new event, and you love that the World Series of Poker is trying new stuff. I know they're taking a lot of grief for the upcoming 50-50 thing, but they're out there trying. And they're
sponsored.
DraftKings sponsored. They're out there trying. They're putting new events like this, the extended play, all these different tournaments. They're trying, and not all of them are going to be giant successes. Not all of them people are going to love, but they're going to discover new ones by doing this, I think. And, and I know I saw some complaining about the extended play, and it's taking forever. But
LOL, it's called extended play.
Yeah. Right, don't sign up for it if you didn't want that.
Yeah, I mean, like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, event 43, some old dude. He won the Super Seniors event. just kidding. He's actually a really cool story. This is 70-year-old John. And remember, this is a 65 and older tournament. It's the first year of the Super Seniors at the World Series. 70-year-old John Andlovich. Vec, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. He's known as Hippie John from Carson City. Wins his first bracelet. I know he plays a lot in Reno. Reno Doc knows him. He beat out a huge field of 1,533 players that are 65 and older to take down 262,000. Awesome. Isn't that a great story? 1,533 players they got.
65 and over, and they put 20,000 to the Colossus Lake, and everybody thinks they're terrible. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I think they did a great job with that. I'm glad that's an event that's going to be around for some time, and I'm not too far away from playing that, I don't think. Neither are you, Joe.
I'll be buying pieces.
That's right.
You're closer to the regular seniors than me, though.
I'm not far off. In his post, Hippie John, in his interview, said he wasn't even going to play. He wasn't going to go to Vegas. His daughter sent him $1,000 to play the event and said, go win the Super Seniors so I can have an elaborate wedding. She staked him, and he's got to pay for this giant wedding if he wins, which he ends up having to do. And I'm sure as a father, you were happy to do it. But again, we're talking about the seniors and the super seniors on back to back, blowing out some of the numbers that they've done before. These events are these are the future. Everybody talks about these restricted events, Joe, and I can't play in this one. It doesn't really count. It's a women's event. It's a seniors, whatever. These things drive traffic, and they bring people to the World Series. Maybe not just to play the Super Seniors. Maybe they go play a $1,500. I don't know how anybody can be upset that these things are going on.
Yeah, and in 20 years when all these kids qualify,
they're gonna love it.
They're gonna love it. So whatever. Just wait your turn.
How hard is Super Seniors gonna be in 40 years?
It's gonna imagine how bad, tough the Super. It's gonna be like the 10K Six Max field.
And do you think it's a mistake, or the World Series was sneaky in planning Super Seniors over EDC weekend?
Well, that's what Joe said.
No,
he made that comment.
Sorry.
It's perfect. Yeah, that's why they did it. So.
I'm lacking a little sleep. I miss things from time to time.
Event 44 was the $50,000 Poker Players Championship, Joe. I know, I remember your great story about playing this event. Mike Gordinsky beats out 83 people, becomes the 9th person to get his name on the Chip Race Memorial Trophy, having an incredible series. His third top 3. He only registered on day 2. If this is a late reg tournament, of course, you can jump in on day 2. Wasn't feeling very good. He was a little bit sick on day 1 and said if it was a normal tournament, he probably wouldn't have played. He hates it when people play sick. I guess he's a germ guy, but screw it. He's going to jump in this one because it's his favorite tournament. He ends up taking it down.
They played for a long time. So I was actually there last night in the dealer's choice on the other side of the room.
Okay, yeah.
And random story. Do you know what they do with the trophy? Do they actually give it to the person?
I don't know how it works.
Or is it like the
Stanley Cup?
Where they give it to you for the year and then you give it back? Or?
You would think that's probably a bad idea. I'm just going to guess that they don't do that.
This is a random story, and not many people saw this happen, but the people at my table did because we were on that side of the room, and it's getting late. It's probably like 2 a.m.-ish last night.
Yeah.
So we're down to like 130 people in the
Dealer's Choice.
Dealer's Choice, and Mike had already won, and that whole place had cleared out on the other side of the room. So we're kind of like the last people in the Amazon room. And we're sitting there, and suddenly hear, boom, like a thud, like a really big thud. And I look over, and there's the floor guy, one of the floor guys. He's lifting the trophy off the ground.
No.
Yeah,
he dropped it.
He straight out dropped it. And, I guess that thing is freaking heavy because, that sound it made. And granted, that's the wood stage of the arena room, where they're doing the final tables and stuff. So a little side story, Mike, if you're listening, check the trophy for some dents.
Gordo, there might be a dent in there somewhere.
Because he dropped it. Yeah. And then I saw him put it on a little cart and cart it out. So, little random side story. You're not going to get anywhere else, I don't think.
Nice. Jean Robert Bellande, who, of course, is one of the favorite individuals in the poker community, had a great run. He was chip leader. I think he had Gordo 9 million to 2.5 or something.
Yeah.
And when the heads up started, and Jean Robert actually had chip lead for much of the final table.
It's
And the whole, Gordo, people love Gordo, but I think there was a lot of people cheering for JRB there because, of course, he embraces the lovable loser type story. I'm not sure that he can continue with that, given the fact that he just won.
Yeah, he's doing pretty good.
$800K.
and I constantly see him in the formerly named or still named Ivey's room at Aria, because I go play mix there. I live in Las Vegas, and he's always in there playing.
He's playing the nosebleeds.
Yeah, and he certainly doesn't have like $500 in front of him like I do. So,
indeed, he's driving his Bentley around too. That kind of gives it away.
Like 100x for what I play.
Right. Interesting. Anyway, we're going to try and get Jean Robert later. He's, I think he wanted to go have a nap when I texted him, but he might join us later to quickly talk about his run. And in the next event was event 45, $1,500 no limit hold'em won by Upshika da Silva.
Nice work.
Which is a great name. 424,000. His first bracelet knocked out 7 of the last 8 players, including friend of the show Jason Kuhn, who went deep in that one.
Not Brazilian?
I believe he is Brazilian. Yeah, Da Silva
sounds like it.
Definitely sounds Brazilian. Event 36, 3K PLO 6-handed. My brother actually ended up final tabling this event as well. He went deep in this one. Vasily Versau from Minsk wins his first bracelet, only his third cash ever. And 2 others that he did have were earlier this year. Dan finishes in 6th for another deep run. In the event 47, they were down to the final 6 in the $2,500 no limit. Popular Irishman Andy Black sits third in chips. That final table is going to be later today. In event 48, Elliot Lazar wins his third bracelet and $112,000, winning the $1,500 7-card stud. You didn't play that one?
I did.
You did play. Sorry, 0 for 9. I forgot. We're not talking about it. He beat out 236 players to take down his massively popular win as well. Ellie, loved by most, I believe, in the poker world.
He's a nice guy. By the way, random note: Upshika.
Yeah.
He's from Texas.
Oh. Well, makes sense. Why wouldn't he be from Texas?
Why wouldn't he be from Texas?
All right, let's move on to some. In case you missed it.
How did he miss the open goal? 6x4, and he comes up 0. Oh, no! Oh, yes! He missed it!
He's missed it! How on earth did he miss that?
In case you missed it, the World Series of Card Marking continues. This is, of course, the big outrage, or one of the big outrages that happened this week. The World Series of Poker responded. It took them a while, but they do now have new cards in circulation at the World Series for all events. When the Poker Players Championship started, I believe that was the day that they got their first batch. They didn't have enough to have all events with the new cards, so they put them into the 50K. Some people were a little bit upset about that. Joe, give me your take on the cards. You've played some events now. You've played with both sets of cards, I'm assuming, because you played the dealer's choice yesterday.
That's right.
Did you have a look, and could you tell the difference? Were they heavier? What was your take on that?
I don't think they're that much heavier. In fact, I pulled the deuce of hearts out with the fingernail mark in it.
Did you?
Yeah, literally last night. I don't think. First of all, cut your fingernails.
Yeah. Why do you have big tongue line?
Everybody at WSP, just go cut your fingernails out of respect for everybody else. Right. Just do that first.
First it's gross too to have big long nails.
So, that's where it starts. So. It's that simple. It really is.
Every dealer his dealer in the box should all have nail clippers.
Just like here.
Here you go. You can't play until you do it. Fix it.
Yeah, you get orbit off, go cut.
Right.
And that's what happens. Like, people love to peel the cards, and what they call the karmas, the Persian sweat. They really peel it up, right?
Yeah.
And you can't see me, but I'm actually doing it on my desk.
Right.
Where
your cards are sideways.
You got 8 fingers on a card.
Right.
And your 2 thumbs.
Yep.
And that's what happens.
Well, so, and you peel the left hand first, because if you peel the right, if you're looking at the card on the table, you peel the left hand corner closest to you first, because that's the one that tells you if it's a 3 across, if it's a 4 across, if it's a blank. If you peel the one on the right, you see the number immediately. And some people do it that way, and they, but if you're peeling from the back, you're bending this card backwards, almost in half.
Yep. And if you really want to do it the commerce way, you got to rub it really hard
with your nail.
But so I digress. But okay, so cut your fingernails. They're not good stock,
right.
And I honestly think the company just doubled up on the shipment, and maybe even they have the same cards in play, and they're just new ones, and just going to go through them.
Which is crazy. This Modiano company has many different types of cards. They have heavy stock, they have light stock, they have different visuals on the cards. I mean, Modiano actually has good cards. They just don't give them to the World Series of Poker for some reason.
And straight cash, homie.
But it's so frustrating because
straight cash, homie.
You're paying so much money to get in these
exactly. You're paying a fortune to play the tournaments, which is fine, but we want game security for that money, and we don't get it. When a guy can call out, we had Sean Deeb on the show last week, and he said, "Look, I got 5 cards in a hand, and I knew if I had a good hand or not instantly." And when that breach in game security happens, the fact that you don't immediately stop everything you're doing and pick the phone up and call these people, and it took them forever to.
Well, they are coming from Italy.
Well, fine, but I understand it's a large amount of cards to get, but this company, obviously sent them terrible cards, and the World Series of Poker looked at the cards and went, "Oh yeah, sure, send us those. Those will do." And we didn't get what we're paying for, and it's terrible. And David Baker was talking about, he did an interview on Poker News, and he was furious. He stopped playing tournaments because it's the massive amount of game security that he was dealing with. And
at those high stakes, you're playing very high stakes poker. I agree, and I'm not even sure if WSOP is paying for it.
Paying for the cards?
Yeah.
No, there was a rumor that they were paid $100,000 to use the Modiano cards and put
the other way around, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Modiano paid them and gave them the 50,000 decks, and then Modiano got their name on the felt. Which
and all over the room.
Yeah, and I understand that this is a big event and they need to pay all their overhead and everything, but you're screwing with game security. You're screwing with the integrity of the game, and it's just totally frustrating that it took this long to fix, and it seems like it really isn't fixed. I mean, in the past, this isn't the first year, and there was some stuff on Twitter this week with Ty Stewart and Seth Polanski, who man the social media and saying stuff like, "We wish you wouldn't fold the cards in like paper airplanes." Now I understand they were making a joke, and I actually kind of laughed when I saw the joke, but some people were pretty upset that this was kind of them trying to blame the players for the lack of
an operations mistake.
And I
can't disagree.
Yeah, no.
But you should still cut your fingernails.
Right. But this isn't the first year people have come and started squeezing cards. This has been done for a long time. And we've had cards that have stood up and snapped back and gone back into shape, and rarely have you need to worry about, certainly cards get marked by fingernails in the past. You change the deck out, no problem. Well, the problem here when you have these decks like they did this year is that it happens every hand. So David Baker is saying, well, here I am playing in a $1,500 tournament, and I'm asking them to change the setup nonstop. And all the people, first of all, the dealer's like, what are you talking about, dude? We just changed them. Well, dealer doesn't understand all the issues. He just he's sick and tired of David asking for a setup. And the floor man, the same thing. He's sick of walking back over to this table that David's at because David's unhappy with every deck because the deck is shit. And they get marked, and David wants a proper deck, rightfully so. All the players at the table are pissed at David because he's slowing the game down. And it just becomes this sort of nasty circle of people being upset with somebody who's somebody who cares more about the security than the actual people running the tournament.
Everything. I mean, I have no disagreement. It's always a combination, and certainly Caesars is a large corporation that is notoriously bankrupt, and it's just straight bottom line. Yeah. So the higher ups just say, like, you know what? Here's the bottom line. The risk is very small on their end when it comes to the integrity of the game, and the cost is, the company's probably saying, oh yeah, well, here are the free cards on our contract. Here's more free cards because people hate them. That's fine, but like if you really want the real cards, cough up $250,000 or something. And Caesars is clearly not going to do that for 100 Twitter complaints or whatever total it is. 200, maybe 1,000. But still, it's risk versus reward when it comes to the big corporate structure, and that's the play right now for Caesars.
I guess I'm surprised by Modiano because the amount of negative press that they're getting from this is huge, right? I mean, I
gotta agree with you there.
The reason they do this deal and they pay this money is so the people, brand awareness, right? The people who play cards a lot become familiar with their brand, and now everybody hates them, and everybody thinks your cards are shit, and yet you're going to send another batch of the shitty cards back. Like, why not just suck it up? Yeah, we screwed up. Send them the good cards, and maybe you save some face. It's surprising to me that they would do that.
When you said they had different stock and all sorts of great offers and cards and products, I actually was somewhat surprised. So, if I was a marketing manager, I'd be like, look, the $200K, let's just make a shipment now and let's get it over with.
Let's eat it. Yeah. Moving on to the next thing. This is a big story that broke yesterday, so bear with us if we don't have all of the details exactly correct, but we're going to get into what we can get into, and that is the fact that Brian Hastings has seemingly admitted to multi-accounting and using a VPN from Florida, multi-accounting on PokerStars, buying an account from buying the account called Noel Hayes, who's an Irish player, or at least playing on the account Noel Hayes. Whether he bought it or not, who knows how that transaction went down. That isn't out yet. But he was playing on Noel Hayes from Ireland in the Scoop Championships, in the cash games during the Scoop in the spring from January onward. It seems like we have proof. And he's now admitted and trying to make good on what he can make good, and also saying a bunch of stuff that is pretty shocking for somebody who did what he did. So basically, what happened was Brian was playing in a tournament, and I believe I'm trying to remember who it was. It was Lucky Gump, Alexei Morzov. They were playing together at a table. Alexei, there was some sort of confusion with the bring in or something, and Brian called him out on Twitter saying he's angle shooting, and took to Twitter and said, this guy's angle shooting. And David Bakes Baker, who does play the high stakes cash games on PokerStars, I guess he had heard that Brian Hastings had been playing on this Noel Hayes account and had played against him. Had played against Bakes with the Noel Hayes account, and Bakes didn't know that it was him, so Bakes felt, wronged by that, clearly, obviously, and correctly, and he kind of took to Twitter and said, wait a second, you who is multi-accounting and VPNing are now calling somebody out for some sort of anti-angle? Like, get serious type thing. Which was interesting. I mean, that's, if you have to think if Brian Hastings didn't do that, if he didn't come out and tweet, would all this have broken out? And it's this issue within the high stakes community in poker that if you point to somebody, if you hear that somebody's multi-accounting and you point to them, it's this small community, right? If you out them, then you become ostracized or whatever. So now there's this tacit sort of approval of things that you're doing. David Baker, to his credits, took to Twitter and called him out. It's terrible what he did. Brian's thing was, here's Brian's situation. He's in Florida. He doesn't want to leave his family, his surroundings, etc. According to a lot of people in the high stakes community, this is common. People are playing on VPNs. Now, if you're a low profile guy, and nobody really knows who you are, what your name is, and you use a VPN from the U.S. to play on PokerStars or one of the other sites, there's almost a no percent. If your VPN is good and you don't get caught by the site, you're not going to get outed by anybody because nobody really cares or knows that you're in the U.S. and your account is playing PokerStars. So they're not going to put two and two together. Well, when Brian Hastings does it, very high-profile guy. His Stinger account on PokerStars has played in the Nosebleed Stakes forever. If he's going to go ahead and VPN and play on PokerStars on the Stinger account, it's not going to be too long before somebody says, "Hey, wait a second! I just saw you, at Disney World. How are you playing in the Scoop?" Basically, right? So Brian's in the situation where he feels, I guess. I actually invited Brian on the show to talk about it, but he declined. But I'm guessing that he decided that, well, other people are doing this. Other people are VPNing on their own account. I can't do that. So what I'm going to do is get another account and VPN on that, and play from the U.S. on this other account, so people don't put two and two together. Now, clearly, that's a giant mistake right there. I mean, VPNing itself is a very risky thing. If you get caught, you're going to be banned from Stars for Life or whatever site you're on. You're going to have your money confiscated. A pretty big risk. But if you do it from your own account, it seems like the high stakes community is okay with that. There was a lot of talk about saying, well, I don't care if a guy VPNs with his own account. He's playing in the game. Yeah, it makes the game tougher. But there seems to be some sort of tacit approval within the community that that's okay. You can VPN as long as you're playing on your account. Nobody's going to out you. But when you find out that Brian or somebody else has been using a VPN to play on another account, this is a problem because, of course, Brian has reads on all those players in the high-stakes games that he's been playing for a long time, and he has reads on them, and they don't have any reads on him. They play completely differently against that Noel Hayes account rather than they would if it was Stinger, if it was actually Brian Hastings. So, this is the multi-accounting issue where he's gaining a lot and everybody else is losing. So Brian's thrown in this situation, and he made a terrible decision to do this, and he's been outed by David Baker, and he sent a PM that David Baker ended up rehosting at a site, and the PM, and I'll read this out because this, obviously what he did was bad, but the PM that he wrote was really, really strange. And did you read it, Joe?
I did.
What did you think of the PM?
It's a bit deflective, but he has some fair points.
Okay, well, let's go through them. Let's read this because I really think this is important.
And I'm not defending Brian in any way. I just because I've just listened to you go through the history of this.
Right.
I want to say one quick thing.
Sure.
And as the former chief operating officer of Deuces Cracked and managing a team of like 40 online poker players.
Right.
Did you ever hear Deuces Cracked and any scandal names?
No.
Well, no. And that possible has something to do with the vetting process that we had. Mm-hmm. But we did have some issues. To say there would be none would be an absolute lie.
Okay.
It's how we executed and handled those issues is crystal clear. I'm not saying anything shady happened because we have very minor ones. And there's actually maybe one or some minor one on the forums with, some older players. This is many years ago. Mm-hmm. And my issue was always, and this goes for Brian, it might be a little late, or anybody else in the future, rip the Band-Aid off. Rip the Band-Aid off.
I did it. Own it.
Just
own it.
You can't, you wait. This is the internet age. This is the eat you alive on Twitter, on forums, on Facebook. You rip the Band-Aid off and you say, look, sorry.
Right.
I don't have time to explain myself right now as I'm busy with XYZ, winning 2 bracelets and mixed games and stud high. And but you just say, that time, like he got eaten alive in the 48 hours before, and it's critical. Like that's like a year on the internet.
Yeah.
So my MO, this is 7 years ago, was like, look, whatever's said and being done, you guys need to tell me right now.
Right.
And you need to post it right now. If anything, like gladly, anything that was ever happened on my team at that time was super duper minor. Nothing like this. So I'm always a huge fan, and anybody who's listening to this is in a situation that is coming to the surface. Like, rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah,
and
deal with it right
just
away.
Bleed. Just bleed. You'll heal.
It's going to happen. Right.
But rip the Band-Aid off. So
some background here. David Baker, apparently Stinger tried to contact David and tell him, because this Noel Hayes account actually made a final table of one of the Scoop events on Stars, and David Baker was there as well. And he was trying to, apparently Brian was trying to get a hold of David on some old Skype contact that he have that David doesn't read anymore, and tell him who he was. And in Brian's mind, that is, I'm okay because I'm trying to tell everybody. Well, there's a giant logic fail there that you can't tell everybody you play a hand against. If you're playing in a cash game,
it's even worse.
There's guys taking shots. There's guys you can't contact. So maybe, you can get some small percentage of the people you can say, hey, it's Brian playing on this account, but you're never going to be able to get everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so that makes it, way worse to actually think through that and say, hey, I'm going to try and tell people. So this is the private message that Brian sent to David Baker and on 2+2. And just before I read this is a private message, and yes, I understand the talking about it and Bakes rehosting it. It was a private message.
Yeah, that's another issue.
But when you talk about the fact that you're actually guilty about something, I think that's where that stops. If you say, I did something like this, and if it's a message like, hey, I think you're a jerk, and then you rehost it, I don't think that's proper. But this is something where he's talking about an issue like this and he's admitting to it and his thought process. So at that point, I think, there's no such rules to the private message. It starts out, I think this is fucked up that you're answering any of my attempts, you're not answering any of my attempts to reach out and just putting everything in public, but it's whatever. I've accepted that my rep is going to take a hit and I'll just get through it. I guess I'll remind you again. I had a friend contact you while playing the Scoop final table. I tried to tell you in exclamation marks. The path you're going on by making this a big public ordeal hurts many more parties than it hurts me. And what he's talking about there is there are people that knew about this, and remember there was this sort of thing in the community where some people knew that Brian was doing this. Well, some of those people might be Pokerstars pros, might be big names, where when this gets outed, people are going to go to them and say, hey, why didn't you knew about this? This is on your site. This is on a, whatever. Why aren't you telling everybody about this? I think that's what he's referring to there. I will right my wrongs to the best of my ability given the situation I've put myself in. I'm not so sure others who are involved will be so lucky. On a macro level, you're creating a ton of awful PR for the game of poker, which we both love and would love to be able to play in the comfort of our homes in the country we were born in. This kind of PR is very bad for future regulation in the U.S. In the online poker industry, it just adds to the shady rep of online poker. Not to mention there are other big names in poker who could get dragged through the mud when they really didn't do anything wrong. If you want to continue playing poker for a living in 5 years, I think you should rethink how you're going to go about things. Again, I really don't care what you post about me. I care about the game of poker and the ability of Americans like you and me to make a living playing the game we love for years to come. Now, that's amazing to me that he's actually saying to David, I did some scummy things, but you outing this isn't good. You know what I mean? Like that logic, Joe, is beyond me.
It's deflection logic to make a grand appeal. He's trying to make a connection, a universal connection, because you and I and everybody else can connect with that. And as said, it's true. We all love the game. We all want to see, and this type of publicity is technically bad. So he's making a deflection and a connection in the same move, and that's the type of move. But go ahead.
Making this the biggest story of the World Series of Poker at a time when the World Series of Poker itself is losing its way and poker in America is at a crucial tipping point is just bad for the future of the game, plain and simple. Again, he just distancing himself from what he did. I don't blame you for your anger, and like I said on the Skype message that I sent you 2 nights ago that you haven't replied to, I'd be happy to compensate you in equity for the sessions we played, including this 2K Scoop final table. My intent was never to gain an edge from deception, just to be able to play and live in the USA, where I have a wonderful network of friends and family that I just didn't have when I tried moving to Canada, which ended and me becoming depressed and moving back with my parents in 4 months. Hence the tweets the other night. Hope you can understand.
Now he's making some sympathetic,
Right.
empathetic comment.
Poor me. I got depressed when I actually played by the rules.
Which is actually true. Like
well, that's fine, but
Well,
but the problem is many people. Brian gets to play on this account from the comfort of his own home, surrounded by his family, his girlfriend, his friends, in his home at home, where people who play by the rules spent a large amount of money and moved away from their loved ones and their comfortable environments to other countries,
or who can't,
or the guys who can't and just
like
don't. But
many to play mix with Brian Hastings. Sorry, Brian. But
right. So think of all those people who moved to Canada, moved to Mexico, spent great amount of money, and are playing by the rules. And the fact that Brian has seen that he doesn't have to do that, he can just go ahead and play. Just shows you that he has a sense of entitlement about it, which isn't good. He continues, I hope you can understand and we can be friends someday in the future. I know you're not a bad guy. You're a very talented player who's had a rough go of late, but you will rebound.
Reverse empathy.
Yeah, like saying, you're running bad kind of thing. I did.
There's like 4 separate lines to try to make a connection on different levels in that 1 p.m.
Yeah. I do disagree with how you've handled things, though, and I don't think my motives were all that selfish. I was done playing on Noel Hayes after the summer, regardless of recent events. Good luck, Brian.
That is ridiculous. How
right.
could you ever say, I don't think my motives are all that selfish? That's the only thing they could be.
It's simply the only thing. And to not realize that, I mean, David Baker, who he sent this PM to, is a smart guy. Like, writing that and Brian actually thinking he's going to go, you were done with the account. I guess you weren't. I mean, that's amazing to me, the logic fail there. Like, he's not going to get that by Baker.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. This PM, I had to read several times. I just was like, wow. I mean, I understand Brian was. And I actually said this when I sent a PM to Brian when we were back and forth a little bit with trying to get him to come on the show. I mean, he was put in this spot, and like every other poker player in the U.S., that couldn't play on the games that he was able to play on PokerStars from his own country. And he went through the thought process that everybody does, like you did, Joe. I'm sure you went, well, do I move out of the country to continue playing, or do I stay at home and find another job and do all these other things that a lot of people decided to do?
I'll take number 2.
What's that?
I took number 2.
Yeah, which is what you decided on. And, maybe at cost to yourself, maybe not, but that's not the point. You made that decision at the time. It remains to be seen. We've got Lee Jones coming up later in the show. We'll quickly ask him. He's not going to be able to comment directly on Brian's account, I don't think, but he can talk to the overall scenario of people multi-accounting or VPNing from.
Yeah, so like I work for an online gaming operator, so I kind of have a little bit different view of this.
Okay.
And as an operator, like let's lay down what actually happened here.
Okay.
Brian violated the terms and service of PokerStars.
Right. And
that's it. So as an operator, PokerStars is somewhat to blame here.
In what way?
Well, they've got a player. It's not. They've got a player that's playing on someone else's account that violates their rules. They set those rules, and they need to enforce them. Granted, it's no easy task.
Right.
I'm well aware of that. However, you could go all the way back and take a Bodog-like view and get rid of all the usernames.
Yeah, and just go.
And just go seat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get back to what a poker game is reading the players in the moment of the hands, regardless of who your opponent is.
Mm-hmm.
And remove yourself from that. And in addition to, you go all the way back in this like libertarian type view and say it's part of the risk of playing online poker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if you're playing against Joe Tall on PokerStars and you knew I was in Vancouver, who knows if I was sitting in your room and you were sitting next to me, Adam. There's no way that PokerStars could ever get over that scenario.
Right, which I think absolves them of any fault. I mean, if they're doing all they can, presumably...
They're certainly doing all they can. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, so if they're doing all they can to try and stop that, I don't know how can they do things they're not capable of doing, and if not, you're blaming them.
Well, I'm not really... But I can also say this. There's somebody out there on the internet that could have found that out. Like, I'm saying, like, the people I know that work in technology and the people that are out there on the internet, there's enough cybersecurity knowledge now that there's probably an individual that could probably have figured that out. So there's enough technology and enough knowledge to figure that out. It's really deep and probably very expensive and not worth the cost compared to the risk that PokerStars would have to balance. Mm-hmm. But so there's a few levels. I honestly, and it's been a few years now, am actually on the Bodog side of things.
Playing anonymous.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been there a while too myself. I'm anti-HUD. I'm all that. So. Which falls right into play with this. However, you look at this bot situation that we've had come on. I don't know if you've read much about this, but
you know what? I only seen that thread bump in MVG, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah, it's a big, long, and involved one, and we're going to get into it with Lee Jones later. But basically what happened was a bunch of people in the Mid-Stakes Pot Limit Omaha community on PokerStars figured out that there was a whole bunch of people with the same stats, some of them which were very strange, like the big blind aggression factor was the same in the big blind as it was from everywhere else, which tells you, that a bot is it's likely a automated program that's doing the same thing with every hand, no matter position, whatever. So, when you have, and of course the pot ripper thing, you've got this situation where the poker community sometimes finds out about some of these people that are cheating before the actual site does. And if you have an anonymous table like you do at Bodog and no data history, anything like that, you're sort of at the mercy of the site at that point.
One of the reasons why Mason Malmuth was quite fond of opening a poker forum.
What do you mean?
Beyond selling books,
right?
When I asked Mason, because I ask these type of questions, why did you open 2+2? He said, well, to sell more books, which he certainly quite succeeded at.
Yeah.
And then the other one was to open a discussion, a community where we could have and the integrity of the game upheld by its players.
Yeah, which clearly happened.
It's happened multiple times since.
Right.
So, this is like 1999, like when the initial idea, and then, it's come to fruition. But go ahead.
I was just going to say at this point, I think I'm with you in the fact that the way Bodog does it, I don't know, and it's dangerous because we see these instances of the multi-accounting, of the bots. PokerStars has billions and billions of hands. What is it? What are they at? 110 billion hands or something?
That's absolutely crazy. Yep.
So, yes, there are these situations where it's going on, and do we think it's going on more than people get caught? Of course. But when you're talking in the context of the amount of hands that are played, is it something that's reasonable to say, well, there's 0.0001% of these hands were played under malicious circumstances. Let's just go to anonymous tables. Again, what that percentage is and where the threshold is to want to switch over to that, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, only PokerStars probably knows, and they'd have to spend some money to figure it out.
Right. So it's a tough call, and I understand both sides of the equation. I'm with you, though. I'm very anti-HUD. I think everybody should be playing sort of in the moment and not have this, because the software gets more and more advanced all the time. We talked about this skier program last couple of weeks where it's literally automated with a chart where a guy just goes click, click, click. There's no decisions made in real time by the player. It's all charted. And at that point, and that passes muster with sites like Stars and other sites, that's okay. And then you look at it and you go, well, wait a second, this isn't poker. This isn't the way it was supposed to meant to be. Why is that okay? Why should people be able to play like that?
It's just because a human is clicking, but the decision's made by an algorithm.
So to get away from that, it just kind of, old man shakes fist at the sky. You think, well, screw you, then let's just go to anonymous tables. One of those things. But getting back to the Brian thing, one of the interesting thing was Noel Hayes, this account that Brian was playing, played against Victor Blom and played some hands against Victor, which were posted in the thread. Now, if you think back to what happened with Brian Hastings and Victor a couple of years ago, right? $4 million Brian won in one day off Victor. There was some discussion about Brian Townsend, who had bought hand histories illegally, used that information to make reads with Brian in that match in real time. And did Brian break the rules? No. Brian Townsend did. But because of the fact that Brian's helping him out with reads with that information, there was a lot of discussion that Brian cheated in those matches. Brian cheated Isildur out of the $4 million. Now he goes back on this Noel Hayes account, and who knows if he told Victor if it was him or not. Victor isn't in the mood of turning any action down often, so I'm guessing if Victor knew it was Brian, he probably wouldn't care and still play him anyway. But the fact is, he played him and under this account anonymously, which I thought that was completely. I mean, all of it was offside, but that I think, given the past, was really bad.
Certainly unethical, yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, interesting. Brian made a bunch of bracelet bets. This was another part of the discussion. Before the World Series, Brian went around and got... we had Sean Deeb on last week. He was talking about them. I think he got 3.3 to 1 to win a bracelet this year, playing, of course, in the mixed games primarily, and that's what he's done. Joe, what's your opinion on this? Do you think people who made bracelet bets with Brian didn't have the information that Brian was playing in the highest stakes mixed games on Stars for months and months before the World Series? Do you think that information is important enough to void any bracelet bets that Brian would have made?
I'm going to go with the sour grapes on that one.
Really?
I am in that camp. It's a game of information. Brian made a bet. He had an edge, and sorry. The funny thing is I played these games with Brian, and this tournament, a ton of variants, it was still probably a good bet. I'm in the that's part of the gamble you're taking.
It's built into the price.
Yeah, I mean, he could have been home reading books, getting coaching from me. Who knows? Like, he's not going to tell you that.
Right.
So who knows? Like, he could be watching Deuce's Crack videos.
I guess it's just the thought of Brian playing in these giant games and, making bets with people that maybe didn't know. And
it's kind of sour grape-ish.
I guess. Yeah, I
mean, he probably did both. He probably played in those games, watched my Deuce's Crack videos, or Death Donkeys on Triple Draw, or, CGs on Stud, and read books. And he even posted in the Stud forum that I am the moderator on 2+2. Like, it's a combination. Like, he's a smart kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, he made a bet, but like, there's a lot of run good too. And I mean, there is.
Oh, for sure.
It's a tournament. So,
yeah, of course.
Like, it was probably still a good bet, even with all this new information that's been revealed.
Right.
But when you made that bet, like, that's part of the gamble.
Yeah. I think if you specifically asked him, like, if, let's say you were going to make a bet with Brian and you said, hey, okay, Brian, can you tell me, just give me an idea what you've been doing for the last, year. Have you been working? Like, that's a fair question to ask if you're going to make a bracelet bet with somebody who's going to play mixed games. I'm not sure anybody asked it, but, if you did ask that and then he turned around and said, nothing, playing at Parks in the 100, 200 or something, and said that, and then meanwhile that came out, then I think you've got a case, right?
Is he compelled? He's trying to get a bet out of you. Like, is he compelled to tell you the truth there? I mean,
I would think so, yeah.
Defending that. I mean, it is obviously unethical, but, like, I'm looking at the thread right now. So, like, years ago, he posted in the stud forum looking for advice, and he's posted since. Like, yeah, so it's just part of the gamble.
Yeah.
Like, I guess if he lied to your face, you'd be hoodwinked, but still probably you should be obliged to pay.
Yeah, okay. I understand what you're saying in general, but I think if he lied, I can't imagine anybody asked him, what he's been doing. It's probably something they would go look for, but if they were concerned, but you would think that people just went, oh, okay, sure, I'll bet, I'll give you 3.3 to 1. But anyway, all right. So there's going to be more of that. Like I said, it's only been a couple of days. We're definitely going to hear some more about that in the upcoming week, I would think. Some more developments. We'll catch up with that later next week. That's a long segment so far, I think. We've been going for a while. Why don't we take a break? We're going to come back, and we're going to talk to Terrence Chan, who is deep in the 10K limit hold'em. We're hopefully going to talk to my brother, Dan. We're going to try and hook up with Jean Robert and Elia Lesra. So I don't know which one of those guys we'll get, but we're going to work on all of them. Hopefully we can fill up segment 2 with some on the premises from the World Series of Poker interviews, talking about some of the wins that went down. You're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast.
And we have a Crush Live Poker strategy minute.
We have a Crush Live Poker segment. This is our strategy sponsor, CrushLivePoker.com, brought to you by Mr. Bartholomew Hansen, who is making some great videos and going deep in a bunch of events at the World Series.
Yeah.
He is talking, was it split pot games, pot tournaments, right?
Yes, split pot tournaments.
He's got a discussion about split pot tournaments. So that's going to be your strategy minute for the week from CrushLivePoker.com. You're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. More right after this.
Hey everybody, welcome to another 2+2 Strategy Minute brought to you by CrushLivePoker.com. I'm Bart Hansen, and today I want to talk about limit tournaments, specifically split pot limit tournaments. When you get down to, say, under 10 big blinds in a no-limit tournament, you're going to have to get lucky. You wait, and you can reship, you can open shove, and sometimes you're just going to have to get lucky. But one of the things that you have to realize about a limit tournament, and especially in split pot games, is that you can wait and wait and wait. The nature of limit tournaments is the fact that there are no antes. And in split pot games, it's actually very hard to get knocked out because of the nature of the split pot. Now, personally, I've been lucky enough to make it to the end to a couple of these big $10,000 split pot events this year at the World Series, the 10K 08 and the 10K Stud 8. And several times in those events, I was less than 2 or 3 big bets all in and got down to the end. So if you have the patience to play very good starting hands when you get short, and also to not go past the big betting round, and I'm talking about in Omaha 8 past the turn, or in Stud 8 past 5th Street, with a hand that's not going to win both ways, then you are going to be at a big advantage throughout the rest of the field. Now let's get back to the Pokercast.
Hey, poker players, don't forget to participate in the weekly Pokerstars Invitational for Pokercast listeners every Sunday at noon Pacific, 8 p.m. in the UK. Just $1.10 with $500 added to the prize pool each week. Formats vary, but you can always find it in the private tab of the tourney lobby. The guys will announce the password somewhere in this very show. See you at the tables.
Hey, it's Mike from the 2+2 store and ProfessionalPoker.com. 2+2 is pleased to announce the release of their most anticipated book in ages, Applications of No Limit Hold'em, a guide to understanding theoretical sound poker by Matthew John Doe. This book will give you the ability to create the bet sizings and ranges which will beat the better players. The theory in this book is not designed to be complex or abstract, but rather it's intended to be applied immediately, producing better overall results. Many confusing concepts, such as overbetting, balancing multiple bet sizing ranges, donk betting, and check raising as a pre-flop raiser, are crucial to a player's strategy, despite few players implementing them or talking about them. And after reading this book, you should be able to not only conceptually understand these ideas, but also know how to begin incorporating them into your game, and thereby successfully compete against tough opponents. At the 2+2 store, we accept all credit cards, plus PayPal and NetTeller.
6 max zoom 500, 230 big blinds deep. MP opens to 10 and I 3-bet 36 on the button with kings. He 4-bet small to 63 and I 5-bet 143 and flat his $222 6-bet. Pot is 450 with 1,000 behind. He bets 555 on the 10-7-3 rainbow flop, and I think, too bad I'm not capable of folding in these spots as I shove, only to see him turn over ace-10 after calling. I hold for 500 big blind pot.
Team Pro Online's Mikhail Inasai Shalamov is a Supernova Elite VIP. This is the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
Hey guys, this is Bart Hansen for CrushLivePoker.com. Whether you're a recreational player who wants to compete at the tables or a professional who wants to increase your win rate, the material I've produced at CrushLivePoker.com will make you a better poker player. Weekly videos focus on concepts, podcasts drive the message home, and a live call-in show lets you directly talk to me every week with your questions. Best of all, you can subscribe risk-free by using the coupon code TPC11. Good luck at the tables.
Welcome back to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. Usually we have the password a little bit later in the show. This is the Pokerstars Invitational for Pokercast listeners. Because of the late broadcast of the show this week, we're going to get it right up here in the beginning of segment 2, and hopefully people can still register for the tournament on Sunday, both the play money and the $1.10 buy-in. So
we might have to break the rule and spread the password out on social media.
Okay, let's do that. This week, again, this is the Pokerstars Invitational for PokerCast listeners. $1.10 buy-in, Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 a.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. GMT. So add that to your Sunday grind. It's a great tournament, $500 overlay, PokerStars ads. It's great value. This week we're going to play horse, as my brother won the horse event at the World Series. So we're going to have horse as the format. The password's going to be pretty easy, WSOP, all lowercase, no periods, anything like that. Password WSOP, and jump in and play. It's great value.
I think I'll have to make horse 2x turbo, because
it'll be long. Yeah.
Last time we did it, it took like 8 hours.
That's too long. So, maybe a turbo horse. I don't know if they have that.
Turbo horse.
That'd be great. It's turbo horse. Okay, so that's the invitational out of the way. So as we said earlier, our normal co-host, the affable Terrence Chan, is going deep in another World Series Poker event, the 10K Limit Hold'em, his specialty. But we are going to bring him in real quick before he starts the day 3 restart.
Is it day 2?
Is it day 2, Terrence? Day 3?
Day 3. It's the day 3 restart. We're down to 11.
Down to 11.
And the only thing I have to say is, thanks for referring to me as normal. That's never happened before.
Exactly.
You meant regular co-host. I think normal co-host would be stretching.
My co-host. I'm just going to call you my co-host from now on. Mr. Terrence, he does join us from the Rio. Oh no, probably not the Rio. From his house in Las Vegas. Yep. We're going to talk quickly about the Limit Hold'em. First of all, give me your take on the structure change. Also, you've played tournaments in both different structures. Remember, the World Series of Poker amended the structures mid-tournament. What was your take on the change?
Okay, well, the $10,000 structure actually never changed. So the structure for the 10Ks, which is the Limit Hold'em that I'm in the third day of, all the 10Ks were actually the same as I think the last 2 years. Those structures are generally great. What they do is I believe the first few levels are 400, 800, I want to say, for the first 2 levels, and also for the next 2 levels. So you basically have 2 1-hour levels at the beginning. That was a change that was made a few years ago, and I think everybody pretty much likes that.
400, 800, you're starting with 50,000.
Yeah, I'm gonna exactly. No, you're starting with 30,000. So they don't triple the chips.
I'm gonna get 10, something right here at some point. I'm sure. Okay, 400,
no,
800.
Right. Okay, so for the 1K and the 1500 events, they do 5x starting chips. But for the 10,000s, they only do 3x starting chips. And the limits are, I'm looking at the structure sheet right now, I checked, it starts at 400, 800, and it's 400, 800 for the first 2 levels, or if you like, there's 1 2-hour level at 400, 800, however way you want to think about it. Then it goes 500, 1,000, 600, 1,200, 800, 1,600. All the levels on the first day are 2 hours long, actually.
And they mean something, right? So we start off with 35 big blinds when you're first starting the tournament. And does it stay close to that for the first day, around 30, somewhere in that range?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to check the end-of-day chip count, but I'd say it's probably in the 20s or so by the end of the day. It's definitely meaningful early, because the thing is that when you're playing a $10,000 tournament, a lot of the time we used to start with like 5,100 limit, I think it was, right? And so with 3x starting chips, what does that mean? You're playing in real dollars. You're playing like a 20-40 game, right?
Yeah.
So
with one buy-in, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're almost playing like a 20-40 cash game, which is fine, except that most of the people playing in $10,000 tournament, they'd probably rather do something else. So most people bought in late or whatever. Now, like you say, the levels are meaningful right off get-go. 400, 800 limit. With 3x chips is 125, 250, and I don't think very few, that many guys are kind of above that. So the 10Ks haven't changed at all. The 1500s, so the other tournament that I was deep in this year was 1500 triple draw, also a limit tournament, and yeah, that I played that with the new structure. I think it might have even been like the second tournament with the new structure. The win in your brother's tournament, the horse, was actually, I think, the last tournament with the old structure, and so that's why he didn't make the money until really, really late. But I actually made the money before dinner break on day 2, so that was much, much better. So big ups, big improvement. We sort of talked about this at the end of, I think it was at the very end of the show last week. We did the show, and I was just refreshing Twitter, and I was like, oh, they made this change, that's great, and we applauded them for it. So yeah, definitely big. But 10K limit structures are great.
Well, and getting back to that, Rep Porter, who's an excellent player, I think went broke in the first 3 levels. I mean, it's it's one of those tournaments where you can distinguish yourself early. Where a lot of the times people just before they'll blow off the first couple of levels. I don't need to be there. It doesn't make a difference one way or the other. You were there right at the beginning.
Mostly, I was a little bit late. I got in a nap, but I showed up within the first couple. I showed up in the first level, and you said, Rap busted probably just a little bit after I got there, and yeah, it's if you run terrible, you should bust in a tournament. That's the thing. People always want to say, oh, you don't want to give people a bad experience by having them bust in the first level. But if nobody busts in the first level, if you're getting incredibly unlucky and you never bust, then it's probably not a great tournament structure. It's not a cash game.
You start the third day with 241,000. Chip leader is Justin with 910,000.
Yeah, he ran away with it.
Jesse Martin, Anthony Zeno, our friend Kenny Shea, who has 293,000. Crazy Marco's there. Ben Yu.
Which is hilarious. Kenny never knows what the betting limit is. By the way, the amount of times that he's put on the board, it's we'll be playing
Can you do your Kenny impression?
It would lose something just audio, but it'll be 12, 2400, and it'll be 45 minutes into the level, and somebody will raise in front of him, and he'll say re-raise, and then he'll look at his
how
chip,
much is
and
it
look
to
up
re-raise?
the clock, and then ask the dealer, and then put out 3,600.
Yeah, do the thing with his hand, and how much is it to re-raise now?
It's great.
Kenny, we've been playing a while.
Player.
Yeah, but a whole bunch of really strong player. Gabriel,
Crazy Marco,
Crazy Marco,
Professor Ben, yeah.
Some, is 117 entrants, so you would expect, the final 10 to be all big names. So
my starting table had 4 limit hold'em bracelets at it.
Yeah, you were saying it was the worst starting table in the history of like poker for you.
I would probably whatever this final table is going to be very, very, very tough. I think it's about on par with my starting table.
Really?
It was just an absurdly. It was just a ridiculously tough table. But,
when you were down to after day one, I think you had like 3 big blinds when you came back for day 2.
A little more than that. I had 13,000, and we were coming back to like 1224.
Yeah.
So it's certainly I had like 11,000, and coming in 1224. It's not ideal, but yeah.
You had to run good early, basically.
Yeah, and sometimes you do run good in these things. So yeah, if I 20x to my chip stack, if I can I don't even need to 20x my chip stack again to win the thing. So
give us your take on playing Limit Hold'em again, getting back into it. Obviously, a lot of people, you were one of the top players for many years, and playing other stuff now, getting back into Limit. What's your take on the field strength, and how are you playing?
I mean, I think I'm mostly playing well. I've missed a few spots. I've always missed a few spots at 9-handed because I've never been a 9-handed expert. All my success has been sort of in 6-handed or less. So sometimes there's weird spots where there's like an under the gun raise and a 3-bet, and I'm like, I don't know what these people's ranges are right now. Because I never played it. But everybody, as I said, left in the field is quite tough. I think at the beginning there were definitely some soft spots. From just the banter I heard around the tables, at other tables, that there's definitely some weak play at some of the other tables. Unfortunately, I didn't get to witness any of this myself. So what I think happens with Limit Hold'em is that I don't think like the best players are getting that much better anymore because the ceiling's kind of capped on it. There aren't very many high limit games, so it doesn't advance in a way that No Limit or PLO does because you've got that really kind of efficient ecosystem where there's predators and there's prey, and only the serious apex predators survive at the high limit. It doesn't really exist anymore. So like the best players are kind of still the best players, and the other players are kind of slowly making strides. And then once in a while, you get some people who are just playing in the game because they're starting to play horse and mixed games and 8-game and 10-game, and they want to get better at Limit Hold'em. And occasionally, you get some wealthy guys. We had a lawyer on the second day of the tournament at my starting table yesterday, who was clearly a recreational player, fantastic guy, and some of what you would consider the more amateurish in the field. But yeah, mostly it's kind of the same old crew, really. When I look around the tables.
I was reading some of the hand histories, and assuming they got them right, because there's been some mistakes in the reporting, but there were some spots where I was like, wow, why didn't he bet that in position on the river? Like top pair, nut kicker kind of thing, where he just goes check on the river in case the guy made flush. Like, it's just these weird spots, and it's by good players, and I'm thinking, I understand that you don't always go for thin value, but do you take that? What extreme does that go to? Like, when it's clear that you have to value bet here, and it would suck to get check raised, but you got to go for value.
Yeah, I mean, this is very it's really tournament specific. I think probably every one of those missed value bets that you see on the river by a good player probably happens in a cash game. But it's obviously such a disaster to be check raised for 2 big bets. At this stage of a poker tournament, especially if you're reading some hands like near the bubble, it's definitely, I think, very tournament specific stuff. I think limit tournaments do have a lot of that because it is really a fine kind of balancing act, because the best cash game limit players in the world know when to get these thin value bets in all the time, and that's not necessarily the case with the best tournament players. The best tournament players have to strike a balance with value betting, with bluffing, with calling down and making hero calls, which is a lot different and a lot more tournament specific a lot of the times. And even things like you talk about before the river. I don't want to give too much away in case any of the other 10 guys are listening right now, but a lot of times I might defend my blind a little less against a tough button opener than I would against somebody, in a cash game, that same guy in a cash game, because I would rather play more, have those chips to play pots against the weaker players. People kind of inherently understand this concept in no limit and pot limit because people can make big mistakes, but I think it also applies to limit.
So wait, you're suggesting you fold a big blind for 1 bet ever in a cash game?
It might have happened like twice yesterday.
You only got dealt one card.
Justin defended his big blind with 3 use offsuit against me when I opened in the small blind yesterday. I thought he was, and then I bet on the flop and he folded and he kind of showed it.
Really? That's just to show you, like, I'm calling everything
100%. And I was like, I wouldn't defend against. I was thinking this in my head. I wouldn't defend against me 100%.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that you should either.
Well,
but,
it's not like it's going to be easy to take the pot away from you. Like, part of calling with the 3 deuce is so you can take the pot away on some flops, right?
Yeah.
I guess he can theoretically against you, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it came king, queen, 8, and I led, so it's not like, so he has to like put in like a raise and then probably like bet the next street and then just hope I'd have nothing.
And then we're talking about, putting all those bets in where it's catastrophic if you make that, if you have middle pair and call him down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if I just happen to have king deuce or something like that, then I'm just going to call him down. But no, Justin's a smart guy. He defended. He knew he was defending light, and then he open folded it on the flop just to kind of say like, hey,
yeah,
I know you're. He wanted to dissuade me from opening in the small blind, which maybe it'll work, maybe it won't.
And then maybe he won't defend as wide the next time because he showed you that
exactly.
one.
Yeah, it's all a lot of metagame adjustment, and this is tournament specific stuff because I'm sure in a tournament I don't know if he defends there. Or in a cash game, I don't know if he defends there, but he certainly doesn't show me and make a point of it.
What are you coming back to? What limits are you coming back to? Do you know?
I believe. That's a question. What did we finish playing yesterday? I'm funny. I just made fun of Kenny for never knowing what the what the limit is. But we played 2-chip, 4-chip at the end of the level. So we played 10,000, 20,000 limits. So I'm guessing it's 12-24.
Okay, yeah. So you come back
probably 12-24. Yeah,
12-24. So you're not a ton of big bets for sure.
No, nobody ever does.
Nobody does in limit tournaments, right? Yeah. Well, I wanted to. There's a thread started about you yesterday in MBG. I don't know if you
really?
I
wonder what that was about.
Yeah. So give us this is something that went down between you and Huck, and of course Huck, one of the fun prop betting type guys in the poker world. And somehow or another, you ended up rolling around outside by All American Dave there in the tent wrestling match.
I think I don't know if he's in the video or not. But yeah. I don't know how this started. Honestly, I was at I was at a table, minding my own business, playing cards, as I do. And Huck's at the next table. He was at my day one table, and he's a fun, chatty guy. And I think Sorrel Mizzi was also at the table. And for those who don't know, Sorrel, I guess, is thinking about getting into MMA. He might have a prop bet with Luke Schwartz for a fight. I don't know what the whole that is. And I guess the topic of MMA or grappling or whatever between Sorrel and Huck came up, and Huck said he had a very small amount of experience in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and he did some wrestling when he was in high school or something like that. So he was trying to think. I imagine it went from a discussion about how would Sorrel versus Huck go to then Huck versus me, and then I guess Huck didn't know that I was trained, and then
he just thought you were just a random in shape guy. He didn't know you had MMA or
he had no idea. Like we're not close or anything, even though we play a lot. And he looks at me and he's whatever 6'5" or whatever he is. And I'm 5'6" and 140, and he goes over and he's saying like could Terrence really beat me? I think it's like the kind of standard thing when some guy's like half your size, like could this guy really beat me in a grappling match or kind of thing. But he knew because I think he had some experience, and he was like, oh well, I've done well doing against other small guys in these grappling, and then all of a sudden Sorrel just comes to my table and he goes, so Terrence, you're going to be on the next break. You're going to have to do a submission match against Huck, and you don't have a choice about it.
And you don't have a choice?
I'm like, all right, fine. Like,
really?
This is what I do every day. I mean, I go to practice every day, and I grapple with big people, small people.
Yeah, but you have a gym and pads, and I mean, you're on. What are you going to do out there?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm more worried about. I'm more worried about like getting kicked out of the Rio or some crazy shit that's going to happen. Like security's going to have a freak out. And
they're not exactly reasonable people. They've banned people left and right for pretty much anything.
Yeah. For like, who was it a few years ago? Like, didn't fill out their tax form properly and like get kicked up from the table.
One dude threw his girlfriend's clothes out the window and was banned for life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
out of the
that was a fun NVG thread.
So so you're worried about that. You guys go outside, and what was the stakes? Do you know what the betting was going? Did you have any action?
It was totally insignificant. Somehow it became like Poker News reported that was like $50K on it. It's insane. There was no way. So first of all, Huck, Huck was willing to bet that he could definitely last 2 minutes, and then the people who kind of knew.
So last 2 minutes before submission, it was submission.
Pardon me?
It was a submission. Okay.
Could you last 2 minutes without getting submitted? And then the people on the other side, like Sorrell and Z Justin, who kind of realized that I was a gigantic favorite, started getting a little too aggressive in their betting, being like, yeah, I'll take 5,000 on Terrence or something. Like, they basically scared Huck out of it, right?
Yeah.
And Huck was like, well, now I want, like, odds or something like that. So he ends up giving, like, Sorrell, like, even money for, like, 100. And, like...
$100?
Huh?
$100?
Yeah, and like Z Justin lays like Z Justin like had to lay 5-1 by the time the talking had to happen. Like Justin's like 5-1. There's like basically no action, and I'm getting like nothing on it. I'm like, yeah, whatever, and I don't care. Like I do this all the time. Like there were literally 3-figure sums of money were going to exchange hands. This was not a serious thing, but like I don't need it to be a serious thing. I grapple for people every day, and there's no money involved. And if I can help out the prop betting community, the gambling and the DGen community in any way I can, I'm always of service to the public of people willing to gamble on stupid shit. As I think that is our responsibility as professional poker players. We need to facilitate absurd degenning and pointless gambling to settle, because that is what we do. It's our job. It's how we make a living, and it's just fun.
It's an ethos.
It's what we do. So next thing you know, we're out on that little like porch thing where dealers smoke cigarettes and take their lunch breaks.
It's so for those who don't know, it's not it's carpeted, but it's a really thin industrial carpet. Like it's not. It's really hard. It's not like a gym where you're on a mat. This thing is pretty much rock hard.
There's a slight amount of bounce to it.
Not much. And then you're rolling around. Give us an idea of how the fight. I saw the video.
The video's up on Poker News. If you search for, like my Twitter @, at DGen Poker, you can probably find it, or Huck's @ Huckleberry Seed.
How did it go?
It went fine for the 26 seconds that it lasted.
Right. Did anything surprise you? Did Huck surprise you?
He was much stronger than I thought. You kind of look at Huck and you think, oh man, this guy's super gangly. He's all like stick and bone arms. He told me after he can deadlift 300 pounds. He can deadlift 300. He used to be like mid 300s when he was like in good shape. He can squat. He's a strong dude. He played college basketball and stuff like that.
Excellent
That's
basketball.
That was the main thing, because I expected him to be kind of quick and athletic and physically coordinated, because you hear about these stories like, oh, Huck learned to do a backflip in a couple weeks and to win a prop, and he does all this and he can dunk a basketball. So none of that surprised me. I was expecting him to be physically very sharp, but strong. Like, here's a guy. I think he's maybe like 190, and he's that tall. You don't expect somebody to be that strong. I figure as soon as I get an arm, that arm's mine. I'm taking it home. But yeah, he was on top of me. I tried to reverse him, and he almost tipped over, but kind of stayed up, and that gave me enough space to go for an arm bar. And I thought, once I have this arm bar, I'm like, oh, well, I've got this.
It's a lock.
Once I've got my legs around him, and then he picks me up in the air and he dumps me on the head. And
he slammed you down, and I'm like, holy mackerel!
Yeah, he slammed me pretty good, but I was ready for it. Luckily, one of the things, like, it's generally considered etiquette in a jiu-jitsu class to not kind of pick someone up and dump them, because people do get hurt like that in a submission. So normally you don't do that, and it's not really like the proper defense anyway. Sometimes it works, and sometimes doesn't, but it's a kind of a low percentage escape. But he did that, and I was ready for it, so I kind of just rolled and made my back big, and I rolled him into a worse position for the armbar, and I thought for sure I had this one. But like I said, he's a pretty strong dude, managed to wriggle his way out of it, and the next thing I know, then there's some security cop freaking out, and and then at that point, you start realizing, well, I don't want to Sorry about that. That's that was the alarm that was intended to stop me from sleeping in and missing my restart. Apologize for that. But yeah, I realized at that point that it's probably a bad idea to continue the security guard power trips a little bit, as sometimes they do.
Well, you got to put yourself in his spot. Like
I know.
He just saw you get thrown, and he's like, "Wait, if this guy breaks his neck, I'm going to get fired, and there's going to be a lawsuit."
What's really funny is that there's this crowd gathering around, and again, people should see the video because it's better than the description of what I was just talking about.
I heard Idema.
Somebody's just saying they're good. They're good.
They're good.
FBT. That's FBT. Greg Mueller, our good friend, of course. Professional shit stirrer. Greg here in Maryland. So yeah, like Greg obviously is enjoying the hell out of this. He wants to see it going on. He's like, no, it's cool, and Greg's such a charming guy. Like I figure at this point it's fine. But I'm focusing on like this 6'5" dude that I'm rolling around on the ground with. I'm not really worried about what they're doing around me, and so I think it's fine. And then I just hear him, hey, and I'm like, okay, it's all good, man. It's all good. But it's funny, you see in the video, he kind of stands around and watches for a few seconds.
Well, I think he was okay until Huck threw you, and then
that might have been it.
I think that was it. He was like, no, we can't have this. But if Huck didn't throw you, I think he was going to let it go.
So just to clarify for that, because that's the most concerning part of the video. Did that hurt you, or how did that feel when you landed like that? Because it looks bad, but I'm not really sure.
No, I mean I tucked my head and all that kind of stuff. If I wasn't ready, then definitely would have been bad. And if I was, I think if I weren't ready for it,
he almost goes headfirst into a table.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's pretty good. So, are you rescheduling this thing? Are we done with it?
We'll probably do it in a proper place. I don't think either of us has any desire to get barred from the Rio or anything like this. But yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it for fun. He thought it was awesome fun. Like he thought it was great. Like he high-fived me, and afterwards he thought it was like the coolest thing ever. So,
updated odds.
Go to a proper gym with some mats and all that.
Yeah.
So again,
after this experience with them, what's your updated take on how this would go?
I don't want to spoil it. Like, people ask, I figure the betting community has now a teaser.
They have information.
Like, they have this 26-second video that's been interrupted, and it's kind of got a little bit of everything, right? It's got me almost submitting him, but it's also got him getting out. People can kind of see the size difference between us, which is like a lot. It's just enough of a tease that I think people will get more action on it. And like I said, I'm just a facilitator of action.
Sure.
Ideally, I should get a cut.
You're a conduit.
I feel like that's part of my service. But I feel like there are people out there who are listening, and I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people out there who'll be like, yeah, Huck could definitely survive the 2 minutes against Terrence. Like, Terrence gave it everything he had, and there's just no way he's big enough or strong enough to submit Huck. And then there's other guys that go, oh, Terrence is just getting warmed up. His cardio has got to be much better than Huck's. He does this all the time. He's got to be a big favorite. So I'm going to let the market sort of. I do have a number in my head of what a fair price would be. But I think it's more. I think it's more interesting. We do like the listener interaction. It's like a Pokercast madness sort of thing. It's like let's let people out there decide what they think the fair price should be. Right? That's why should I spoil it?
Make sure somebody records that. Good luck today at the run for your first bracelet in the 10K limit hold'em. It would be awesome if you and Kenny Shea got head up. I would. I would love.
We're gonna have to start looking for cheap flights tonight.
Exactly.
Yeah, Ross is looking for an excuse for a round
to get back down. Exactly.
Thanks a lot, guys.
I left a lot of money on the table in the Rio cash room.
Oops. All right. Have a great show, guys.
All right. Thanks, Terrence. Take it down.
Okay. Bye.
There he is, Mr. T-Chan. From one limit hold'em wizard to another, we go. So let's bring him in now. This is my bro, Daniel Idema, who did take down what did you win? Well, you won the 3K horse. That's what you won for your third bracelet of your career. Awesome moment. We were all sweating you on the rail. Had a ton of fun. Give me your reaction, and because it wasn't one of those final tables, Dan, where you just kind of cruised to victory, right? I mean, you really had to work for that one.
Yeah, no, it was up and down with the betting structure and everyone having limited big bets. It gets pretty volatile, and you got to pretty much play your stack as effectively as possible, especially when you get low and big jumps in ICM. It was a big grind.
Right. It was the last tournament of the old structures, right? I mean, for those out there, they changed the structures midway of the World Series. I believe Dan's victory in that tournament, that was the last of the old structure that was really long at the beginning, so you didn't get into the money until the end of day 2. But what ended up happening was you were pretty short chipped at the final table, Dan. I remember thinking at one point, like, the average had 7 big blinds or something at one point.
I think I entered the final table with the chip lead, and then at one point I think I kind of lost a few pots off the bat, and all of a sudden I was kind of in the middle. And then I was pretty much the lowest with about four people left, and spun it back up. But everything went well, obviously, and pretty excited about it.
Your World Series this year didn't start out great. You and I had been talking, and you were kind of bummed. You were like, "I'm not even going to tweet updates because it's basically bust out, bust out, bust out." You had a min cash, I believe, in event 20, and then the 3K horse came around, and it really seemed like, sweating you like I was, and watching the hands come down online, plus seeing it in person, you were pretty dialed in there. It wasn't like it was getting you down because you hadn't had any success.
Yeah, it's tough, especially when you start busting in the tournaments. You're trying to stay positive, and I have trouble just. I want to keep people who follow me updated, but when you're just putting out bad news all the time. I mean, when you take a bad deed or something like that, you go on Twitter, it's just kind of like, I don't really want to put a bad deed on Twitter because that's not who I am. And, just putting busts on there every single time, it's a little bit annoying. So it's just, getting out of the tournament, trying to get out of the casino as quick as possible. And then just trying to relax and get refocused for the next event. It's pretty much the goal. And, that's a little bit of a process, especially when you're repeating it time and time over again. And, eventually you just got to stay positive and get back to the next event and do the best possible you can. And, luckily enough this time, I was able to persevere and make things happen.
You had a lot of success early in your poker career in No Limit Hold'em and Limit Hold'em, and then you switched to mixed games. And obviously Limit Hold'em's in the mixed game. Mix is in horse and other ones. But, moving to those mixed games, tell me about why you moved from No Limit Hold'em. I mean, you had some pretty good success. You won the BC Poker Championships for $400,000, so you moved to mixed games. Was you were bored of No Limit? Did you see that this was a way to jump on the curve early to take some of the advantage of some of those mixed games and learn them?
If anything, I felt like I've always been on the curve a little bit late. I was always just like a cash game Limit Hold'em specialist. And those games were thriving, to a certain extent, for a long time, and didn't really feel pressure to start playing other games. I feel like the transition into a lot of the horse games being limit based and kind of similar logic, it was just a little bit easier for me to make the transition as opposed to no limit and the big bet strategy. So I just felt a little bit easier, and it just clicked to me a little bit more. I still play a lot of no limit. But, I wouldn't call myself a world-class player by any means when it comes to no limit. I still have a lot to learn and probably should do a little bit of studying in the upcoming years to become a better player. But I just think that from my Limit Hold'em background, it's a little bit easier to transition into playing games like 08 or, Stud High Low.
So I want to ask you about your Limit Hold'em background. For those that don't know, you and I were obviously close, and we played, Limit Hold'em together a lot during the boom years of Party Poker. Is it okay if do you mind if I tell a little bit of the story from before?
No, of course not.
So what happened was Dan was playing in the Western Hockey League in Medicine Hat for the Tigers, and you'd seen me play, and this was, you got to think back, this was the glory years of online Limit Hold'em when there was 30, 60 games going at Party Poker, and 15, 30, and they were all ridiculously good games. Like, if you could play a little and turn your computer on, it was a bank machine. And Dan's in the middle of this. He sees, that I'm doing well in these games, and you're in the middle of playing hockey, which takes an amazing amount of dedication, especially at the level that you played at. So it was difficult for you to, you were always a video game kid. I remember when you were growing up, you would, as soon as you learned like GoldenEye or any of those first-person shooter games, you would just dominate and crush me like right away. And online poker really was kind of a video game, right? I mean, it wasn't much different, but you were so busy with hockey that it was tough for you to get a lot of hands in and play good. And I remember that when you first started out, you'd bust your account pretty quickly and you get frustrated. But then there was sort of a turning point. I remember in your draft year, you hurt your knee early in the season, and you were laid up a little bit. And you were like, well, maybe now's the time to learn to play poker.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much exactly how it went down. I remember you used to send me $50 at a time, and I think I lost about $1,000 or $2,000 before I first started seeing as a click. I mean, when I first started out, I think I pretty much used a blackjack chart to see just starting hands on Party Poker and went from there.
Right.
It was amazing what was going on in that heyday. But, yeah, it's an experience thing, and you got to put the time in, and anytime you start a new game, you're not going to win at it, and you got to pay your dues. So. But
it wasn't long before you were doing really well. And, you're an 18-year-old kid, and you're making all this money after a while. And playing with guys who are, getting $18 a month to play for the Tigers or whatever ridiculous salary you guys get. And I mean, how much was that, do you think? Because, you had an opportunity. You were hurt in your draft year, but you were only 20 when you came out of hockey. And you could have gone and gone through say the ECHL and worked your way up if you wanted to. But you were doing so well at poker at the time that changed your mind a little.
Yeah, I think absolutely. As at that point in my life, it's kind of difficult when you do something your entire life and you don't really know what else is available out there. And being about 20 and playing poker since I was about 4 years old, I was just really hungry for something new besides, hockey. And poker provided that for me. And it was a little bit unfortunate because I have a little bit of regret as far as not pursuing a little bit more of a hockey career and seeing how that went. But, I'm pretty happy how things did fall, and poker gave me a lot of opportunity. And, all in all, I think it was a pretty positive experience.
What kind of response do you get from your buddies from hockey? Obviously, it's high profile. You've won 3 bracelets. You are the second all-time in Canadians with bracelets. I mean, I guess your hockey buddies must notice that stuff.
I think so, yeah. I think they're pretty happy for me. I think they always were, pretty supportive. Even when I first started playing, people are pretty curious. The boys, they get excited about those sort of things. And, it kind of plays into a little bit to the testosterone competitiveness that the guys in the dressing room have. And, they get excited and they ask a lot of questions. And I think some of them try to learn to play to a certain extent, too.
Yeah, they're always playing their buddies on the bus. I want to get back to... the final table, and when you got down to 3-handed, there was an interesting hand that came up. You were playing. This is 3-handed with Matt Vengren, who's known as Plattsburgh Online, of course, longtime successful tournament player. And the other fellow, Iacofano, I believe was his name. I believe he's either won or final tabled the Sunday Million a couple times. Obviously a good player as well. There was a hand that came up in Limit Hold'em that I want to ask you about, and I think you were down to about 5 big blinds, and the other short stack was down to maybe 3 or 4, and Vengren had all the chips at this point. He's on the button and he opens, and you have ace-9 suited in the small blind. And we just talked about your cash game experience. I mean, that is a snap 3-bet in 100% of situations. You're way ahead of Matt's range in that spot. But you took a second and thought maybe that wasn't the best play.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't really do in the past, but I'm kind of a little bit more conscious of now, is that, the pay jumps are so big from, second to third to first, is that you really got to play for those jumps. As unexciting as it is, it's just long term, and the results are going to be a little bit better. And the Italian guy in the big blind, I think he was, it was pretty much where if he played a hand, he was going to go bust, and I had, a little bit more than he did, and then, it was kind of Matt was going to be what, the best strategy for him was to start playing a lot of hands and applying a lot of pressure because he couldn't really play back at him because of the ice spot. And, it's obviously the best hand, but he's in the big blind, and if he plays any hand and goes bust, it's better for me to just fold in that spot, even though it's pocket aces at that point. And
right.
Just hope that, he plays the hand and he busts that hand. It's not something, you want to do. Obviously, it's a lot more exciting to play, but I just think the best strategy is just to fold the hand, and hopefully he gets caught into a hand that he ends up busting, and you make the big pay jump.
How much easier is it to play Limit Hold'em in that spot in position because, as we were talking about, like if you're in position and you raise and a guy decides to play a hand with you out of position, he's really handcuffed even more than normal because if he takes a bluffing line or he tries to take a pot away and the person in position actually happens to have a hand, it's catastrophic to this guy's tournament because you guys are playing so shallow. You all got like 8 big blinds or whatever you've got, and if you're going to try and dump 5 trying to run a guy off second pair or something and limit hold'em, you're going to be in trouble. And so it's really, you've got to, when you're playing a hand out of position, you really have to flop big or you're going to, I understand you're getting 3.5 to 1 pre, but you have to flop a massive hand to be able to play through unless you're going to just punt off your chips with a bluff maybe.
Yeah, I know position in general I think is underrated in poker. A lot of people see that, but especially when you're down to that small of chips behind you. I think as soon as you hit that 10 big bet threshold, is that really goes up because barreling second pair is generally the play, but it becomes very difficult with a lot of turn and river cards. So it's a lot easier to be playing those small pots or those small with that small amount of chips behind you. Later streets definitely with position. I would agree 100%.
You get to pot control and keep pot small. Yeah, you get head up with
take control.
You get head up with Matt Vengren, and you bust the guy in third. I can't remember the hand, but you end up with $2.6 million, I believe, and Matt ends up with $3.1 million. You guys ask for a break and get it, and you go and you make a small deal. I think there was $100K on the table between first and the difference between first and second. You end up taking 50 off the table with a deal, and then come back and. It was pretty much Vengren had no shot. It was one of those runs that you go on in the perfect time, and it was just like you won every hand. You made huge hands heads up in every game you played. It was fun to watch.
I got hit with the deck, and couldn't pick a better time to get hit by the deck, and I felt a little bit bad for Matt because it didn't seem that I could do anything on. I was walking on water at that point. It's you kind of for the sportsman in me kind of wishes a little bit more of a battle, but I think in hindsight I should be pretty damn happy to be hit with a deck as heavy as I was.
That was fun to watch. But you put yourself into position. That's the key. Like, yeah, you got lucky. You ran good when you were head up. Matt made a pretty big mistake in one hand, I think. I don't have the hand in front of me, but I remember thinking, wow, I think that was a pretty big mistake. But, I mean, because he was frustrated, because you were getting hit by the deck. But you put yourself in that position by folding that ace-9 suited where maybe you go broke, and other hands that you play early in the final table, and people look at that and go, oh, Dan ran like God when he was head up. But you got to understand, you gave yourself that opportunity to finally, have that deck, have that run of the deck. I mean, it's not just you got lucky, then you gave yourself the shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I ran hard at the right time, but getting all the way down to just even the final table was a battle. And there was times where, you get all in. There's times where you have to stay positive, and there's times where you really have to persevere and, be strong. And, it's a battle just getting to a final table. And you're right, just being in a position to have a shot is very important. And, it's nice when you get that shot that you get hit by the deck again. But I totally agree that, just getting there and putting yourself in a position to for the good things to happen is a feat all on by itself.
We talk, you and I, privately about the 10K limit event. This is an event you finished second in, and the following year won some great results. You weren't really super excited about playing it. I know you did jump in when you busted the PLO, but it didn't sound like you thought it was a real soft spot.
Yeah, I think it's got a little bit tougher. I didn't play it last year. I haven't played it for a couple of years. I think that it was a little bit better than what I anticipated. But once you get to a certain point, it's everyone's kind of playing perfect, and there's not much giveaway. I'd say about 40 or 50 people in that field are playing perfect and aren't going to make any mistakes. So it's a very competitive field.
You had a decent run. I think. Did you finish like just out of the money, maybe 10 out of the money or something?
Yeah, I had a horrible orbit where I flopped nut straight against the set and got some bets in on the turn, and the board paired. Typical run out, and then one of the players in the small blind limped in at ace king, and kind of a funny hand where I got check raised with 9-6 on the deuce 3-3. I think he had a backdoor flush draw. He was trying to make a play at it, but I don't really make a habit of betting the deuce 3-3 with an ace or folding, and he caught a 9 on the river, which is a little bit unfortunate. Now it's kind of out.
So you jumped in the $1,500 dealer's choice event, right? I mean, that's an event you final tabled last year.
Yeah, that's an event I kind of, I probably shouldn't have played. It's a lot to be said about knowing your mental state, and I think I kind of punted it a little bit. I wasn't in the right mind frame. I wasn't well rested, and I kind of regret playing it. I probably should have just got the rest. I mean, people underestimate how important it is feeling fresh and stuff like that. And, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have played that event.
That's a tough one because it's a fun event, right?
It's a fun event. I did well at it last year, but this particular time, I feel like my mental state was I was dead money in this event. I probably should have just took the rest.
I noticed in the $25,000 fantasy pool that Todd Brunson took you on his team. Couple wins, final tables of the last 4 years. It's hard to fly under the radar. I guess that was sort of nice that he took you.
Yeah, it's an honor to be drafted in that draft. I mean, there's a lot of world class players, and it's just an honor to even be on the board. To be really be honest with you, and don't expect to get picked. And it's nice when you get picked, and it's nice when you get picked and do well.
Yeah. Did Todd thank you for your bracelet or anything?
Yeah, so I ran into Todd once. He gave me a pound. It's a good work. He's pretty positive. I'm pretty happy that I was happen to do that.
Nice.
I think he's struggling a little bit. His team isn't doing too well, so
yeah.
Thanks that I can help out a bit.
Dan, I wanted to ask you, going back to the 3K PLO, you made the final table of that, and that was pretty interesting to watch. I remember a hand from the live updates. Apparently, like Joe Hashem freaked out at you when you made a straight against him or something. Do you remember that hand?
No, I mean. Joe's funny. He's very theatrical at the table. He turned set he had a blocker or something like that, and I turned a straight. It was a 5-handed hand. Turned a straight in the gut shot where I made the nuts, and I don't know why. I checked back and he ended up betting it, and I got someone overcalled. I ended up being able to make it a pretty big pot size bet.
Oh yeah.
And I think he was a little bit disappointed that. If he doesn't bet there, he probably wins the pot because the board ends up pairing on the river.
Oh yeah.
I think it was just a little bit disappointed in the outcome. I think it was blowing up a little bit, but I'm playing with Joe a few times. He's a nice guy, but he can be pretty theatrical at the table, a little bit into it at times.
Yeah, poor guy runs so terrible. I mean,
yeah. He can't complain about running bad. Somebody who I loved watching at that final table, unfortunately I didn't get to watch you very much, but Agrawal, he seemed like he was making some pretty creative plays, more creative than the other people. How would you rank his play and the other?
Is that the guy that won?
There? No, he didn't win.
What's the guy's name?
Agrawal. Was his last name.
Do you know that he obviously was being super aggressive the whole final table, Ross?
He was just making.
He's European.
No, yeah. He was an American guy, but I think
he's got the European name.
He's of almost Indian descent from what he looked like. I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
I didn't. Every time, I think I played with him one of the final 3 tables. I was kind of short, so I didn't really get to play in too many deep pots with him. But I think the final table there's a few players playing very, very snug, and I think if you had chips, the right move would be to kind of bulldoze a little bit because I think a couple of those players were playing a little bit too snug and.
Yeah,
really weren't adapting to what was perceived of them as much as they probably could have, and I would expect the guy whoever had the chips to kind of take that line, and obviously he's a smart guy if he did.
Yeah. What are some quick basic differences? Because obviously PLO cash and PLO tournaments are like totally different. What do you think are some quick adjustments you need to make for a PLO tournament?
Just being in action. You can kind of conserve your chips a little bit to where if you only have 4 big blinds, you can kind of spin it. I saw it multiple times where guys spin 3 and 4 big blinds in the big stacks. So, there's not as much potting on flops or whatnot, like you might see in cash games, or as much 3-betting with wider ranges as you might see in a cash game because of how shallow we are, and no one wants to really 3-bet the 8, 9, 10 jack and get it in against aces because you're pretty much playing the whole hand pre-flop. So generally your 3-bet ranges are skewed heavily towards aces if not kings rather than rundowns, I guess.
Yeah.
So taking a lot more flops, I guess, more than anything.
Cool.
A lot more value, it seems, rather than bluffing. But yeah, I like them. Yeah, I like PLO. I play a little bit of cash. I feel much comfortable playing PLO cash as there are tournaments as I would feel playing no limit.
Dan, we get a little warning for you. We recorded your nephew Rudy telling the Luongo stick story. He says,
awesome.
He says you pushed another kid out of the way to get to the stick, so you might get some backlash from that.
No, I didn't do that, but I was ready to. I was ready to if I had to.
Well, Lou pointed at Rudy, right? So that's who he wanted to get the stick.
Yeah, he did. He pointed right at him, and I understand everyone very, very much the Luongo stick's in high demand, so I can't blame anyone for trying to get in there. And I think that the little kid had his dad with him. His dad was pretty legit about it, so.
Good.
I didn't really want to be put in that position to be taking sticks away from kids, but I think if push came to shove, I might have had to.
I don't need to tell you that I'm a huge Idema fan, but I think there's a fan out there that's just a little bit bigger than me, and that's Mom. And I haven't told you the story actually, but we were down there sweating the final table, and there was no live stream. And Mom is texting me furiously saying, "Can you ask them to start the live stream?" And I text her back like, "Mom, just because I ask them to start the live stream doesn't mean they're going to do it." So that's what I text her back. She goes, "Oh, please, just do it." like I was just able to. It was funny. Anyway, she obviously wanted to watch you take it down, but your biggest fan for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Appreciate everything, Dan. That was a lot of fun to have you on the show, and hopefully you can pop another one before the final table. Hey, even go for a main run or deep run in the main.
I shall try my best.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks for having me on.
That was fun, but now this is the PokerStars part of the show, or this is this week the PokerStars part of the show.
Got some controversy to tackle.
Yeah, we do. We have some issues to get into. Usually Steve Day's the man of the hour, but this week we're going to talk to Mr. Lee Jones from the world's biggest poker site, PokerStars. We've got a few things to get into this week. Some of them we've covered already, but we're going to get the take of PokerStars on some of the stuff that's going on. Lee, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks very much. Good to be here. And do I understand that we're here, that Terrence is not here because he's going deep in the Limit Hold'em event?
There's no dedication on his part to the show. I'm revisiting my decision to bring him in as co-host. I can't believe he's kind of abandoned me like that. But some people are just selfishly.
Like every time you go deep in a 10K event, you're going to blow me off. Huh?
Exactly. Now, the way he plays poker, it's going to be often.
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on over at Stars. There's obviously this big thing with Brian Hastings has blown up, and his PokerStars or somebody else's PokerStars account is in the middle of that. First, I want to get to some of this bot investigation stuff. Some of these people that were banned, PokerStars' take on this. I understand you're not going to be able to go into details about individual accounts, Lee, but just as an overall sort of picture, there's great concern from the 2+2 community about the bots that were playing on the mid-stakes PLO, and just sort of get a rough idea of how Stars dealt with it.
Right. So there's a few things I'd like to say. The first is that everybody is taking it as given that all the accounts they're talking about are indeed bots.
Right.
And one of the things that I want to emphasize here is that 2+2 or any forum for that matter, any group of random poker players standing around having a cup of coffee and discussing stuff, have one set of criteria by which they might decide somebody is a bot or somebody is a cheater or whatever.
Right, and we talked about those. It's similar stats, and taking out some of the randomness of could this player just fall into this specific set of stats that we have these bots at, and how to sort of determine that. I understand what you're saying. PokerStars has access to much more information than the players do with just their hand histories. So, sorry, I just wanted to clear that up.
Yes, I mean, not only do we have access to much more information, but that's a very good thing because we have a much higher standard of assuredness that we have to have before we declare somebody as a bot, right? I mean, 2+2 or any random group of people can say, it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. It's a duck. It's not that simple for us because there's a couple things. I mean, one, we have our licenses require us to have a certain standard of care and that sort of thing, but also just we are the people that have all the information and we actually have to act as, judge and jury in this situation, if you will.
Right.
And so if we're talking about banning somebody from the site, or even more importantly, confiscating somebody's funds, we have to reach a level of certainty that, 2+2 doesn't need.
Okay. So that's interesting. So a couple of players, I'm sure you're getting a lot of people suggesting this person's a bot, this person's a bot, and reporting them to you guys, and then you've got to do your due diligence, like you say, and make sure that. I know PokerStars doesn't really talk about the method they use to decide somebody's a bot, because that, of course, would give people who are botting or trying to bot information on how to avoid it. So, as much as you can tell us, can you give us a little idea how the process works when people report it or you discover it?
Well, so that's something else that I want to talk about is that we find well over 90% of all the botting and cheating and everything else involved proactively. All right? So it's not like we're sort of sitting back and waiting for a call to come in where somebody says, this guy's a bot or those two guys are cheating. We actually work incredibly hard to find it proactively, and if I may say so, we do a very, very good job. And in fact, the accounts that the 2+2 people have been talking about were already on our radar when we were contacted. So the point is that we don't see something that looks suspicious and then suddenly say, that person's a bot, and then, confiscate their funds or shut down their account. Obviously, at the point at which we contact the person, because, for instance, one of our rules is that we never we never confiscate money or close an account until we've contacted the owner of the account and said, something to the effect of, well, what the hell? I mean, would you please explain to us why we're seeing the following things that make us uncomfortable? If you do, obviously, at the point that you've done that, if the person is up to no good, they are now aware that you know that they're up to no good. And so we will oftentimes collect more information while we are, trying to figure out what's going on. But, for instance, that person wouldn't be able to cash out.
Right.
So if they do create more harm while they're there, well, we've got their money. So it's not like we're just sitting back. And obviously we're also aware that if there is somebody who is doing bad things, we have to balance the choice between alerting them to our awareness of what they're up to versus collecting more data. But I guess what I want to say is it wasn't that we discovered these people because other people contacted us. We were already aware of them. To your question, if somebody contacts us or if we find something, then we have a number of different tools. And I have to tell you that in the discussions, the internal discussions that I've seen in the last week or whatever it's been that we've been talking about this, I've learned some neat new tricks that our people have that I know they didn't have not too terribly long ago. So we are continuing to improve the quality of our technology, and it's going to be a constant technological battle. But basically, when we are given a report or when some of our monitors find something that we believe is of concern, then when we have other statistics that we can start looking at, other tools that we can bring to bear on the situation, because obviously you can't run that kind of analysis on every hand that goes by or on every player. But as soon as a filter scoops something out of the water and says, oh, this looks like it might be trouble, then we have a whole bunch more tools that we can bring to bear on it to try to determine it.
Is that to say, I mean, I think Schwein and some of the other people at 2+2 that have spent some time on this have also done quite a fair amount of work to, with the information they have. And I imagine that was helpful on some level.
I'm sorry, what was the last sentence?
I imagine the work that they did was helpful on some level to Stars in going down this road.
I'm not 100% sure of this, but I believe that a couple of the things that they looked at were things that we had not been looking at before.
Okay.
And we started looking at that. But again, I want to emphasize that we were already on the trail of the accounts that that were brought up when this happened. I also want to say that it's very nice to say, oh, these guys all have the same playing statistics. And I remember that one thing that, really woke everybody up was that these particular accounts were all doing a lot of 3-betting out of the big blind in PLO.
I think the stat was big blind aggression is the same as their overall aggression number.
Yeah. And, that's like a black swan, if you will, right? I mean, you just don't see that. But needless to say, let's suppose that somebody decided, hey, being super aggressive out of the big blind is a good thing to do. And suppose you had a coach that was teaching players to do that, right? You can easily imagine a whole bunch of players starting to sort of march in somewhat lockstep in terms of their stats. Particularly the stats that are available on the outside, as opposed to those that are available on the inside.
Right. I think it's just one of the pieces of the puzzle, so to speak. When you look at all the other things, I don't think anybody was shouting from the rooftops. These guys all have the same big blind aggression as their overall aggression number. I think it was one of those things where they went, okay, well, we can match up this guy with a bunch of other players, and wow, look at all these stats. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, certainly if you're out there looking for bots and you don't have the full picture and you're just sort of cherry picking singular stats, you're going to have false positives.
Right, and that sort of goes back to what I was saying before. Is that it's one thing it's mildly disruptive if we contact you and we say, there's some things that we see here in your account that make us uncomfortable. But if we reach a level where we're going to say, oh, we're going to shut down your account, or we're going to confiscate your money, we need to be pretty damn sure of what we're doing, because, it's as upset as people get about cheating. Imagine the response if we confiscated the money of somebody who was just a legitimate player for whatever reason, right?
Sure.
And the other thing is that goes to an important concept that I think we need to focus on, which is cheating, while unacceptable, is actually very, very rare.
Oh, that's good.
And to give you an idea, we have a report of actual verified collusion once every 20 million hands that we deal.
Wow.
20 million hands. It's just, so in the grander scheme of things, and it's one of those things where, if something bad happens to somebody in a statistically wildly, if somebody gets struck by lightning, you say, well, that doesn't really change my fear very much about being struck by lightning because it's so rare, except for the guy that got struck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not taking away from the severity or the harm caused to those people who are affected. The fact of the matter is that it is very, very rare. And we are constantly working to make it even more rare.
Yeah, I think the concern with this instance is these guys played a fair amount of hands, won I think over $1 million or something. I think the 1.5 million was the total. They were at it for a while. How do you go about dealing with when you, in general terms, when PokerStars closes an account for somebody who's caught cheating? Making parties whole, I would imagine, is your first concern, but that's quite difficult, I imagine, in certain situations. And I believe some of the money goes to charity, right?
No. That's not correct. If we bust somebody for cheating, then they have an algorithm called ETH, or exposure to harm. And basically what it does is, and I'm not familiar with the details of it, but it's essentially an algorithm where we say, who did this guy take money from? And how can we best redistribute the money that we have captured from them to those who were harmed?
So it's a big, long process, I would imagine.
Well, I mean, there's a program that does it.
Gotcha.
So it's relatively straightforward in that sense.
So we have a precedent in the UK. I think back to Darren Woods last year, who was prosecuted for multi-accounting, among other things, and went and spent some jail time. We've got a situation here where some of these players theoretically could have been wronged in the UK. We talk about PokerStars' burden for proof. Now we've got a court of law's burden of proof, and that's these are all, and 2 + 2's burden of proof. They're all probably different levels. So give us an idea of exactly how the court angle would come into something like this.
The very short answer is I have no idea.
Okay.
I do know that it's very interesting you should bring that up, because it's one of the things why, as you're aware, we're out lobbying in California right now.
Sure.
And one of the things that we think is very important about regulation is that it puts the big leather boots of the law behind our terms and conditions. And, it's one thing, as you say, to go after money on a poker site or anything other thing when you think to yourself, well, the very worst that can happen to me is I get booted off the site, and maybe in some amount of circumstances they will confiscate my funds. But, as you say, for instance, if you steal money in a Las Vegas casino, well, you've done a felony and you can go to jail.
Right.
And in regulated markets, that sort of cheating has exactly the same kinds of repercussions. And I don't know what the rules in the UK are, and I don't know how it gets involved. But I guess what I would say is that it's very likely that, if something like that happens, we probably are required to report that under our license, and then the legal authorities can decide if they want to pursue it or not. And I'm speculating on that, so please don't take it for sure. But what I do know is that if the legal authorities come to us and say, give us information, we would certainly cooperate with any of the legal authorities in jurisdictions where we're regulated.
And I'm guessing you probably have to educate them too, because these are people that probably don't understand a lot about the intricacies of botting and online poker and aggression factors and
right. I mean, I can easily imagine that sort of thing would make for difficult prosecution. But I think it'll be really cool, particularly as you see in the United States. You get 1 or 2 cases where people are successfully prosecuted for cheating online, and they get big fines or jail time. It's like, wow, that will take it out of the realm of just kids playing around, right?
Indeed.
Lee, before we moved on from this topic, and I know you won't be able probably to answer this question completely directly, but taking $1.5 million out of the mid-stakes player pools, like just the
economy,
the poker economy there, and those the ring of accounts, the supposed bots. Are you able to say how many of those accounts have been shut down and if money has been confiscated?
I really can't answer that.
Okay.
I actually know the answer, but one of the things, and anybody that wants to, I'm happy to give you the exact chapter. Show you a link to the license because it's on the web. At least for the Isle of Man license, and I presume it's true of the other licenses that we hold. It basically says this is heavy-duty data protection stuff. And we could literally lose our license for discussing aspects of any account. Then that would include, have we shut down that account, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's unfortunate. I mean, I won't say it's unfortunate. That's the way it is. And maybe, there's obviously upsides and downsides to that. But the fact of the matter is that we just really cannot discuss individual accounts, whether that account has been found guilty of anything, whether we've investigated the account, or, if we have investigated it, what we've found. But, I want to be real clear that when people write in and if they say, I think that Coffee Cup 123 is a bot, we don't just file that. I mean, we're going to go and investigate that.
Fair enough. Let's move on to another hot topic in the poker world. This is, of course, Brian Hastings, who has been found to have been multi-accounting under the account, the Pokerstars account, Noel Hayes, who is an Irishman in Ireland who has an account under his name. Allegedly, Brian bought this account from Noel Hayes and multi-account. So he was multi-accounting because it wasn't his Stinger 88 account. And also, he was VPNing from Florida on the account. So I know, again, you're not going to be able to talk to specific accounts, but as a general overall rule, some of the discussion that came out of this, Lee, was it seemed like it was a known thing that a lot of people or a lot of high-stakes players were using a VPN to try and play on PokerStars, of course, at their peril. If they're caught by stars, their accounts are going to be closed and funds confiscated. But it seems to be something that is troubling some people, that it's happening a fair amount.
Well, technology is a two-way street, right? And if you work hard enough at it, you can make it more and more difficult for people to detect what you're up to. But we work super hard, and I have to say, particularly in the area of play from the U.S., because that was the part of our agreement with the DOJ.
Right.
That we would keep people out. So, it's like the multi-accounting thing, that's our rule. And, we can decide how we want to, how to enforce that, or how severely we're going to enforce it, or, what the penalties are going to be, or whatever. The playing from the U.S. thing is a very big deal, because we basically told the U.S. DOJ that we would do everything in our power to keep people from playing from the U.S. And we do. And, your old friend Michael Josem was on that team for quite a while, and they busted tons and tons of people. And I know people that got busted.
So when you say there's a fair amount of people that were caught trying to play on PokerStars from the U.S., their accounts, I'm assuming, were closed and their funds confiscated. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yes. And whenever I talk to anybody about it, ever since Black Friday, if I just heard so much as somebody sort of making an idle comment about it, I would just be like, don't go there, dude. You know, you'll get caught, and then, you know, you may very well get a perma ban from PokerStars and all your money confiscated.
Right.
So it just wasn't worth it. And, you know, as you correctly said, I can't talk about this specific instance. I don't know what's going to happen. I do know that they are going through exactly the same procedures that they go through anytime this sort of thing comes up. And it's happened, you know, many, many times since April 15th, 2011. And, you know, the security guys will come to whatever conclusion they come to and do whatever our policies and procedures say they should do.
Again, something that could be end up in court because, you know, if this player or a player, was playing against people from the UK and multi-counting against them, this is something that Darren Woods was prosecuted and sent to jail for. So it seems, and I wonder for Stars, if is it something does there need to be this threat of legal jail, criminal record type thing over people's heads, rather than, you know, just having their accounts taken away and whatever money they won's taken. It seems like this might be a bigger deterrent if people understood the fact that hey, you're not just going to lose your account and the, you know, couple $1,000s you had in it. You might go to jail.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting point. I don't know. It's not really PokerStars' business to be talking about what, you know, a governmental legal body might or might not do. But, I mean, I guess if you I don't remember the exact details of the Darren Woods situation, but it seems to me that would be the sort of thing that people would be aware of and would hopefully look at and say, gee, I don't want to go down that path. Or maybe they think, oh, well, it'll never happen to me, or, you know, whatever else.
Yeah, I guess I just meant, Lee, that if it's Stars' position to say to the poker community, hey, if we catch you doing this, you know, we have a channel with the local authorities that we're going to send them your information for them to do whatever they're going to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thought, and I don't know if we do anything like that, but I will certainly take that back to my colleagues and find out if we do.
Fair enough.
Because, I mean, as you say, anything that could act as a deterrent, you know, we should all be in favor of, right?
Let's move on to some lighter topics. One of them is Daniel's summer party. Are we going to see you in Toronto on the 1st of August at the Big Bash?
Sadly, I am not going to be in Toronto on the 1st of August. I'm going to be somewhere in California. As you may be aware, we're talking to the California legislator peoples and trying to get online poker lit up in California. So you're going to have the Toronto Summer Bash without me.
But
I mean, it sounds like it's going to be fun because Daniel's going to be there, and Hartigan States are going to be there, and I guess they're going to be premiering the big documentary about Daniel's life.
Nice.
So should be a lot of fun.
Looking forward to that. The other thing that I heard, a little bird told me, and maybe you can confirm if that's true, during the main event at the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas, Nevada, PokerStars is going to have a presence again. It's been a while, a few years.
Yeah.
Give us the...
Actually, the little birdie spoke the truth. You know, for the first time since, I believe, Johnny Moss last won the World Series of Poker, we are going to have a presence in Las Vegas at the World Series of Poker. It's going to be at the Palms Hotel Casino.
Nice.
And we're just going to set up a hospitality suite because, like, you know, all of our American friends haven't been able to play for real money for 4 years now.
Right.
You know, 4+ years. And we've been still develop. You know, as you're well aware, we've been working on the software and improving it, and we have lots of new interesting things going on. And you know, for instance, Zoom Poker posts dates Black Friday.
Right.
So it's like, come on in, and we're just going to have a chance for everybody to come and see us. We're going to be doing some live Twitch streaming from the hospitality suite.
That could end badly for some people, I think.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
it's late in the night, I'm not sure you want to be on that Twitch stream. I'm wondering, is it the giant baller suite with the basketball court?
No, there's no basketball court in there. I honestly don't think that PokerStars customers would want to pay. Because I saw the price list.
Yeah.
And I don't think that PokerStars customers would want us paying for what that basketball court would cost. They'd rather see that in the form of deposit bonuses and stuff.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, we will have a suite there, and we're going to have Wi-Fi and maybe a foosball table, and just a chance. And we'll have the pros over there to do selfies and autographs, and just have a really good time. Get to see our American friends and be at the World Series. And, we were talking about it, and it was like, look, PokerStars is the biggest, most powerful name in the poker business. The World Series of Poker is the single great gathering of the clan every year. And it just seemed crazy that the two were not coinciding somehow.
Indeed.
So this is not going to be a massive, huge party, but it's going to be a nice, elegant presence, and we just want to invite everybody within the sound of our voices to come by and say hi, and we'll have some kind of little contest going on where you can win some PokerStars swag, and
you'll be glad. Are you going to be glad handing and shaking hands?
Oh yeah, I'm totally going to be there.
You're going to high five.
As a matter of fact, I am prepared to take on all comers at Scrabble. Anybody that beats me gets a PokerStars T-shirt.
Nice. All right. Thanks so much, Lee. Really appreciate that. What are the dates for that?
Right. That'll be July 3 through 9.
July 3 through 9 in the Palms, and people will there be some information on Stars on how to find that?
We're sending out a mailer. But basically, if you just wander into the Palms Hotel Casino, and if you don't know Las Vegas, it's a short, very hot walk from the Rio. But it's you know what? It's manageable.
It's not too bad.
It's really not too bad.
It's a lot better at night.
Yeah, I mean, you can go in the evening. It's better. But even if it's midday, just like drink like a liter of water. Walk across to the Palms, drink another liter of water, and you'll be okay.
You'll be there all day, or what are the hours?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what the hours are going to be, but I would say afternoon to mid-evening. So let's say noon to about 8 o'clock. But we will have that up on the Twitters, and we will get the word out in many possible social media ways.
Nice.
So everybody knows when we're there, and we'll let you know what pros are going to be there and who's going to be there to you can play a heads-up match and try to win a stress star or whatever it is.
Nice. Oh, great. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate it. Have fun in Vegas, and hopefully catch up to you soon.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll talk to you soon.
Ross, we got a last-minute addition to the interview list.
The Pokercast is very popular today.
Yeah, we've been trying to track down so many great stories going on at the World Series of Poker. Of course, last night, the deep run in the Poker Players Championship was Jean Robert Bellande, and we got a hold of him, and let's bring him in. Fresh off his deep run, Jean Robert, what a great run. I think the whole poker world was cheering for Gordo's a great guy, and everybody loves Gordo, but wow, I think you had a bunch of support last night.
Yeah, I felt a lot of support. My phone was just blowing up with texts of support from all over the place. It was pretty exciting stuff.
Talk a little bit about the run. This is the toughest tournament, of course, of the World Series to take down. You're playing against the best players in the world in the mixed format that you're familiar with. You play against a lot of these guys in the cash games, I'm sure. So you got a handle on what their abilities are. But how much would have this, or how much you still finish second, you win a ton of money. But if you would have taken this, it probably meant a lot to you this tournament, right?
Oh, absolutely. So many times I've gotten really close to getting a big one or whatever, a couple deep runs in the main event, and it's like I was thinking, wow, this would be like just a beautiful story right here, and it just felt like everything's coming. It's my time. I felt like I was making really good decisions yesterday, and actually over the last few days. And this tournament actually kind of just suits my best skills because now that they've added the Badoogie and the No Limit Deuce, those are two of my stronger games. And for a lot of people, those are a couple of their weaker games. While I might, other people might have an edge on me in other games. In those two games, I feel like I can overcome. That No Limit Deuce actually played kind of small, but I'm just saying this game structure and everything, it's perfect for me. Really, really exciting stuff. It was a good time.
Did you get a sense that some of the guys were avoiding those two games? These are for those that didn't understand, this Badoogie and No Limit Deuce were added this year to the rotation to make it a 10 game. Did you get a sense that people were kind of trying to avoid those games?
I didn't. PLO and No Limit Hold'em are like, the games that can, break your whole stack. The game that actually played the biggest in the whole thing was the Deuce to 7 triple draw. Right. Those were the biggest swings. And it's interesting because that's not necessarily true in a cash game. But the Badoogie, I think people for the most part were playing pretty snug. And then, the No Limit Deuce played so small. It just, because there's only one betting round. And it's the same blind structure as the No Limit Hold'em. So the No Limit Deuce was actually the smallest game. I don't think people avoid that, and people are learning it quite a bit. So
did the Deuce to 7 triple draw play really big because hands just play themselves. Once you get to you rarely fold on after the first draw. I mean you're putting in so many bets, and hands kind of play themselves, right?
You got it right. You got it right. It's just a big swing game, and it's got to be completely incorrect to just like fold after the first draw, and oftentimes after the second draw, unless you're sure that you're beat. And the key is you don't want to get in there after the second draw drawing dead.
Was that a game that people were avoiding then because of the fact that you could go through half your stack in a hand?
I didn't notice people avoiding games except for PLO, and that's just the PLO was playing way smaller than PLO would play in a cash game or in a PLO tournament. I think even, just because people want to, they don't want to really gamble for all their chips in PLO. So that's what I kind of felt. But even for myself, when I had aces and when I had kings, I never re-raised because I want to see a flop first, and I don't want. There's Gordo, super tough player. I have played more heads up cash with him than anybody else in the world.
Really?
Like he and I have battled each other so many times online and live. We've had, he was the one who pointed it out to me that he's played more with me than anybody else. And when I think about it, I've played more with him than anyone else as well. And, he's a wonderful guy. He and I got really deep 5 years ago in the first 8-game cash, 8-game mix over at Pokerstars when they introduced that one to the PCA.
Oh, wow.
And, he and I ended up heads up for first and second. He got me there too. That I was really excited about winning that over there, and then he got me. He bested me there and bested me last night. But it's I can't tell you how frustrating it is to be so close.
Yeah.
To just about getting it. And this was a really, really good one. I mean, really exciting. And I had the chip lead when I was in fourth place, and then heads up he had the lead, and then I won on the stick rush where I had almost 10 million in chips, and he was down to like 3 million, and he was really frustrated. I showed him that enormous bluff in that Raz hand, and then right after that, I couldn't catch any cards for like 40 minutes, and I was kind of folding, playing. We were pretty conservative for a while, and then a couple, 2 back-to-back Deuce to 7 triple draw hands, and all of a sudden now he's got the lead, and that just went down from there.
You guys are playing for a large amount of money. Obviously, head up. You're good friends. I'm wondering. The natural thing would be to look at the money. You've got what was it? $500,000 difference. Did you guys think about making a deal there?
The funny thing is, in hindsight, I guess making a deal would have made sense. Because we figure to be somewhat close in skill level. And we both want, the trophy and the bracelet.
Right.
But I second place money in this situation, 800,000, versus $1 million, it sounds really significant, but at this point it's like, we're shooting for first either way. And,
yeah.
The prize is $500,000 more. That's great. Not winning first at that point, going into the final table, if someone told me you're going to get second, that would have been fantastic. But once you're almost there, and the frustration, and it was a really special event, and it was a great time. That guy Gordo, he's a fantastic player. When we were three-handed, I actually. It looked like it was going to be heads up with Bakes and I,
right? And
then Gordo doubled through him twice. I would have preferred to play Bakes just because he and I haven't played much, and I more see him as a ring game player than a heads up specialist, whereas Gordo is a heads up specialist. Gordo plays heads up and three-handed poker fantastic as well as anybody, and so I would have much rather played Bakes, even though I thought Bakes played fantastic the entire tournament. I figure that I'm one of those guys that likes to play every hand in a regular cash game anyway, so I'm more familiar with playing every hand. I don't know. So everything just kind of went not the right way. Once I saw Gordo doubling up, I went over to my rail and I said, "Oh man, dude, we really need Bakes to win this pot here."
Yeah.
And then yeah.
Do you think the mix is right now? This is the perfect mix, the 10 game now?
Yeah, no, this 10 game is great. To be honest with you, when we're playing cash games, that is actually the mix we're playing a lot of times.
Nice, okay.
That big game at Bellagio, the 10 games, those are the games we're playing. And I wouldn't mind if that just became the standard for mixed games out there, 10 games, and everybody just learns all the games. I think this tournament is so perfect because it's like the Poker Players Championship, and poker is not just a one-trick pony. There's all kinds of poker, and these 10 games really, take from everything. And I'm obviously weaker in the stud games than I am at the draw games, and maybe even the big bet games. But I think to win this, you got to be an all-around player.
Jean Robert, I know you like to poke fun at yourself, and that is endearing to everybody in the poker community, including myself, and it's neat. But I wonder if that being the Poker Players Champion and having it must have been super important, just on a respect sort of level, and you've certainly earned it with the deep run finishing second. It could have gone either way, but it's about respect too in the community.
That's that's true. But between you and me, I think that anybody who watched this event or watched this run, kind of knew that I must have been playing somewhat decent. I took a lot of hits and still got to where I was at. It wasn't like there was any tremendous pot where I had queens under kings and sucked out on anybody. This was all grinding out, getting there, and taking the ups and downs, and I kept my composure throughout, and I think I earned my second place, and could have easily gotten first.
Yeah, no question. You mentioned the big games going on. I know some of them are going on at the Aria as well. Can you give us a quick some tidbits on what's happening over at the Aria before we talk about the Super High Roller Bowl?
We got the cash games going right now. Once my floor man's asking me something. Yeah. So We have big cash games going on all the time, but right now we got that super high roller bowl like you were talking about, the 500K buy-in event. That's really exciting. That's the first time that any major event has ever happened without any juice.
That's fantastic for the community.
It really is. And to be honest with you, when you get these televised programs and everything, you're not playing the players who are basically your athletes out there, and it's great entertainment for the public. Why should they be paying juice? We're providing our own prize pool. I think hopefully this starts a whole new trend, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to be a part of this, because I want to support poker for the players, and all the money going back to the prize pool is that's a start in the right direction.
You need to talk some of those bigwigs at the Aria into buying that World Series of Poker thing and bringing it over to the Aria and having the No Juice World Series. You imagine the giant success that would be if you could manage to hold a World Series with no juice?
Well, I'm not going to get into the politics of everything, but I love the World Series of Poker. I love the brand, and it's been great for me, for Jean Robert, for Broke Living, the whole thing, and Jack Effel over there running that show is great, and Ty, and
sure.
I'm thrilled with what they have going on. Yes, absolutely, no juice for poker players would be fantastic. But everybody's got to make their living and make a business run. So we got to find other ways to bring in the income.
Yeah,
hopefully through advertisers. As poker becomes more mainstream, that's a real thing.
No question. And the other stuff that's going on at the Aria, we talked about it earlier in the show, the $1 Million Celebrity Shootout. This is going to be something fun to watch. It's going to be on NBCSN, I believe. This is June 27th and 28th. $1 million first prize for first, 0 for second, steak knives for second. I love that. And how do you guys get invited to this thing? Are you got to be a super big mainstream celebrity or Doyle kind of thing?
I wasn't a part of the selection process, but I believe I was selected. So,
good, nice. There you go.
I think I'm pretty sure I was selected. But anyway, that'll be really exciting. We're going to play for $1 million and $1 million for first and second for 0 for second. That makes it. That's something else. Imagine if boxing was like that. That's the way it should be.
Totally agree.
So,
that's going to be fun to watch,
yeah,
especially when they're
that'll cause a lot of pain.
Oh yeah. Well, they're not putting up any money, so they, there you go, right?
I think that the pros that are playing in it are putting up money. I think they each put up $100,000, and then the celebrities come in for free.
I see how it is.
So it's pretty. It's a pretty cool thing.
Not the only thing televised. We mentioned the High Roller Bowl, but there's a High Roller Cash game as well. $250K buy-in.
Yes, yeah, and I'll be like the table host of that game. Basically, it's kind of an extension of our big game at Aria, anyways. But it'll be televised. It'll be a lot of fun.
It's a no limit hold'em.
It'll be like the newer version of High Stakes Poker.
Nice.
In fact, the same host that hosted High Stakes Poker are hosting this. AJ Benson and Kaplan.
Oh, wow.
Kaplan's one of my favorite announcers out there. In my opinion, Kaplan and Mike Sexton are the two greatest poker announcers.
That's awesome.
It'd be great to get the two of them together sometime. but AJ's done a great job. He's gotten, it seems like he's learned a lot about the game. And AJ and
Gabe.
Yeah, Gabe. It's going to be fantastic.
That's going to be No Limit Hold'em on Poker Central as well. So you mentioned it's an extension of the cash game. What are the blinds in the cash games in the big one there, and are they going to be the same on the High Roller Cash game?
I think in the High Roller Cash they're going to be 4,800 with a $250,000 buy-in.
Is that what's running there?
Yeah. I mean, it might actually end up being a little bit bigger than that. But $250,000 buy-in, significant. Now that I got this cash from last night, I'm going to have a little cash to be able to play that. So, looks like I got about 3 bullets.
Nice. All money in play at all times. That's the best thing. Can you talk about who else is going to be in that game?
I don't know the final lineup, but I mean, there's quite a few business guys that are going to be playing in it, and I know actually, I probably shouldn't be saying any names just yet. So,
I don't want to get you in trouble.
But I'm being summoned back over to the game now.
Fair enough. Thanks so much.
Anything else we wanted to run through?
Well, just one quick thing I did want to mention to you, and like I was saying earlier, how great it is how you're willing to laugh at yourself. Well, on our Pokercast show, we were trying to find somebody in the poker community to have a roast of. You know, have you ever watched the Comedy Central roasts where they bring in somebody who's got to be willing to laugh at themselves, and we roast them? So when we asked our listeners who they wanted to roast, everybody suggested you.
Is that right? Yeah.
Is that something you'd be okay with?
Well, I think I'm a pretty good sport.
You are.
You are. I mean, I don't know. Roasting would be interesting to introduce that back into the poker world. It'd be kind of cool.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that another time with you. Maybe I'll see if we can tee that up at some point later in the year. Thanks so much, Jean Robert. So happy to see you on that deep run. I think a lot of the poker community was pulling for you, and good luck with all the happenings at the Aria that's going on here in the next couple of weeks. Looking forward to seeing that
Thanks
stuff.
so much. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye now.
Holy crap, Rossco, I'm exhausted.
Back to back to back to back.
We got 4 interviews in there.
I hope
that was
those didn't. They were all pretty unique. I hope they didn't start blending together.
Yeah.
That was a very interview-heavy segment.
That was good. Okay.
It'll be good for people on their long summer grind.
Or mowing the lawn. One of the two.
Same thing. It's a summer grind.
It's a grind. All right, so when we come back, we're going to hook up with Joe Tall again. We're going to cover some of the stuff that we didn't get to and do some Rossco Report. You got a couple of hands, one live from the World Series. And we might not get to much of the mail this week because a lot of the mail is directed to Terrence and myself. Terrence not here. We'll be back hopefully next week. So we might just save up those emails for next week and do one big long mailbag segment. So we'll see how much time we have left coming back from the break. Keep it right here. You're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. More right after this.
This week on the Crush Live PLO podcast, hosted by Don Asa Ding, 2+2 legend.
I went for a little bit of an unusual play here that I like to do sometimes. It doesn't come up very often, but most people will fold unimproved trips by the river facing a triple barrel, which I think is pretty reasonable because most people aren't going to triple barrel worse.
Check out the Crush Live PLO podcast and videos every third Thursday on crushlivepoker.com.
Middle position makes it 2,500 to go at 6-12. Button calls, and I peel with 8-7 off in the big blind. Flop comes Queen 7-6 with a diamond flush draw. I got none. I check, middle position C bets 4K. Button folds, and I call. The turn is a 5 of diamond. I lead this time for 13,000, and he calls quickly. The river is a jack off suit, and I bet again, 32K this time, and he snap mucks.
Team Pro Online's Marc-Andre French Dog Ladouceur is a Supernova Elite VIP. This is the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
Hey, poker fans, don't forget about the 2plus2.com digital magazine. Each month, a wide array of poker professionals and media write fascinating articles about the game you love. Want to learn about big blind versus small blind hand ranges? How about optimal Jeopardy daily double strategy? Topics like those and many others are covered every month. Head on over to 2plus2.com to see what the magazine has to offer this month. Hey, folks, don't forget to follow the Pokercast crew on Twitter. Adam is at PokercastAdam, and he'll keep you up to date on things like upcoming guests, listener contests, and all the latest bacon-related food innovations. Follow Ross at PokercastRoss, and you'll discover new hip-hop bands and learn how to not play Micro Stakes No Limit. Also, give us a like on Facebook, where we post lots of photos and other nonsense.
Pokercast presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. That was fun. A bunch of interviews there for people. Hopefully, people enjoyed those. We're back with Mr. Joe Tall to get into some more in case you missed it, some emails, etc. Welcome back, Joe.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So
kind of disappointed I didn't get to talk to Dan. I donated $3,000 to his cause.
You did? Oh, right.
I did.
You played in that event. Yeah.
I did. Actually, that's the deepest I went. I fell about a dozen, 12, 13 left short of the bubble.
Oh, did he? Did he play with
Dan
at all?
lost 3 hands in a row. No, it was weird because you're down to like 4 tables at that point. 5 tables or so at that point. Actually, it was the horse, so we were more like 8 tables, but because you only play 8-handed.
Sure.
I lost 3 hands in a row to Randy Orel.
Oh,
how do you say his last name?
Ohel.
Yeah, I know him too. I can't pronounce his last name. And I lost 2 or 3 hands. And guess what happened last night to me, the dealer's choice, when I sat down at Randy's table?
You lost a bunch of hands.
Yeah, I lost directly to him. And I think he might be the chip leader going into day 2 today. I've yet to look.
Do you like his game? He's gone deep in a bunch. He played in the 50K as well.
I mean, not only do I like how he plays, but like he's like the nicest guy. Like he's a really nice guy, so he's great. I love Randy. He's a good guy. I wish him the best. So I've never actually met your brother Dan.
Oh,
and yet the circle's weird. And here's an odd. Remember how I said earlier that I've talked to Terrence Tran a bunch of times and we never actually met.
Right.
So I'm sitting at the dealer's choice last night, and Grapes is on the other table.
Matt Grapeman.
And then I can hear Terrence's voice right behind me. And I just stand up like, hey, I'm Joe Tall. And he's like, hey!
That's funny. Nice to meet you.
Because he was getting deep in the limit at that time. It was like, midnight or so last night. So,
one more funny thing that happened as I was walking through when Dan was getting heads up for the bracelet, and I walked by and Remco was playing the 10 game.
Right.
Remco Rinkema. And I said, Adam's brother, he's heads up for the bracelet. And he's like, who's Adam's brother? I was like, Dan Idema. He's like, I thought that was a joke. I thought this was just a year-long running joke because, they have nothing to do. They don't look like each other at all.
Yeah. Indeed. All right, so let's jump into some more in case you missed it. This is... we're coming up. There's a lot of things going to be happening at the Aria coming up here. One of them is the 500K tournament, of course. They have the big cash games that are going on. We're going to hopefully get into some more of that as the 500K tournament arrives. But they're also having, interestingly enough, a $1 million celebrity shootout at the Aria. And this is a multi-table tournament with $1 million first prize. By the way, winner take all. No, second place is a set of steak knives, and it's hilarious because if you get an invite to this game, it's like getting handed 20, 30, 40,000 depending how many players are playing.
Yeah.
It's an incredible deal for the people who get to play this. There's no entry fee. You have to be invited. Celebrities such as Norm Macdonald, Don Cheadle, Hank Azaria, Kevin Pollak are all going to be there, as
all
well
the
as
people that really need $1 million.
None of those people need $1 million. Although it's funny. Like you talked to Norm, we've talked to Norm at the PCA before. I mean, Norm loves poker.
Yeah.
Norm plays $50 sit and goes online.
Yeah, that's true.
And when he's playing cash, he's literally playing $100 sit and goes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's he loves sit and goes.
Yeah. Some people
Norm
could use it more than others.
Yeah. Norm's played a lot of cards.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know how announced this is, whatever, public information. He's actually really good friends with an old school, I'm talking less than probably 100 number register 2+2er. that has thousands of posts. He's like, he's been best friends with him for years.
Who are we talking about?
A prominent old school 2+2er, cash game commerce player. I'm not going to name him because I don't really know.
Lyman. It's got to be Lyman.
No, it's not. It's not. Nope.
That would be a fucking ridiculous group of people to hang out.
Yeah,
Norman Lyman.
Yeah, this is limit. A limit guy. But yeah, so like it's just a celebrity. But like,
I think I know who it is. I think it's Poker Bob. But I'll find out.
No, it's not Poker Bob.
No, so we're just guessing until we hit it. Yeah. But anyways, so Hank Azaria, Kevin Pollak are all playing, and they're inviting poker players, famous poker players as well. Doyle Doyle somehow can't make it out to the World Series, but he can make it to the $1 million celebrity shoot. I can't say I blame him. Antonio, Helmuth, Daniel's going to be there. Vanessa Selbst. Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting.
It's a great poker.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, all the press that thing's going to get is going to be fantastic, especially with all those celebrities. You hope one of them are the ones who win it, just so there's extra press.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be possible for a good player to sell free roll packages
for himself
at markup
if he does make it? Absolutely. I mean, think about Antonio's got to have huge equity over like Hank Azaria in that tournament, right? I mean,
that's sick.
You hope a media guy's going to win it, but let's face it, it's probably going to be a poker guy. Depending on how deep they are. I haven't seen the structure. I imagine it's going to be pretty turbo-ish.
Yeah.
So who knows?
That's awesome.
Next thing is, where's Phil Ivey? We're almost the way through the World Series now. It always flies by, right? I mean, we're event 50, and you think, it's going to be 6 weeks of the World Series. It's going to take forever. We're at event 51 or 50, whatever it is. We're getting near the end, and no Phil Ivey. Ivey hasn't.
What are you talking about?
Crazy.
I don't know. Yeah, I wondered. I was a couple weeks in. I was like, "When's MVG going to post a where is? Oh, there it is!" The next day,
it happened. Lots of rumors. He was in Macau representing They said he had a deal with a casino was paying him to be their ambassador, to playing in Europe in big games with his buddies, traveling around Europe. But I think Donnie Peters from Poker News tweeted saying something to the effect that the World Series of Poker just isn't the same without Phil Ivey at him, without Phil Ivey at it. And a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? It's the World Series, nobody cares. I kind of agree with them. I mean,
I wouldn't know.
I mean, I'm just thinking that it's just one of those things where one of the people that you always follow, especially on these fields with 80 people, 100 people, Ivey tends to go deep, and one of the guys you're always looking for on the updates to see how many chips he's got is Ivey. And I think Helmuth and others that you look to the chip, but I don't know. What do you think? I just don't know that it's the same without Phil.
It's tough to from my personal perspective. I did actually notice, and I'm not
is that right?
A poker fan at all. It's just like he's the name in the face of what high stakes in poker and a lot of the WSOP has been about, and it's just like what everybody does every year as a poker player in our poker in the poker industry, and it's a little strange. It's just like how when Tiger Woods doesn't show up for the Masters next year, it's going to be the same thing. So
yeah,
so it's just like what's happening? There's a change happening here, and people wonder why. So.
Well, I think one of the things is people, Helmuth won his 14th bracelet, and Phil has 10, and people want Ivey, I think. I mean, you always want to anti-cheer Helmuth, right? I mean, a lot of people, and they want Ivey to catch him. And it's this race thing, right? No, not all. But I mean, a lot of people are cheering for Ivey to catch him in the race, and it's not out of the question for Ivey to play, if he played every tournament, to win 4 bracelets in a year. Especially with the fields and the amount of tournaments that are played this now. I mean, it's obviously a long shot, but he could do it, and I think that's part of it. But it's just different without having Ivey to sweat and the bracelet bets, etc.
Yeah.
Moving on, in case you missed it, Brian Micon is returning to Nevada, and if you remember back a few months when we talked about it on the show, he ran a Bitcoin poker site called Seals with Clubs. He allegedly ran this site out of his home in Nevada. The Nevada Gaming Commission raided his house with a full SWAT team, knocked his door down, came in and took all his equipment and his electronics and all the cash I think he had on him at the time. And Brian decided that he didn't want to be around in Nevada much longer and took off down to Antigua with his wife and daughter, and was talking about the fact that he wasn't coming back and saying, screw it, I'm leaving this oppressive country. I'm going to head down there and live free on a tiny little island. And it seems like, you wonder how long that takes. Yeah, it's nice for a month or 2 months, whatever, you're living on a beach, but that island gets...
There's only so many papayas you can eat,
right.
Until you get sick of them.
How often can you go to the beach, right? I mean, it gets old pretty quick, especially if you're living in a town like Vegas where there's lots of stuff going on. Of course, the World Series is on right now, and Brian loves the World Series and playing in tournaments. So anyway, he had David Chesnoff was his lawyer. Great lawyer and, high priced and very good at what he does. He negotiated, it seems like, a plea deal for Brian to come back, plead guilty to a felony charge in exchange for no jail time but probation. If he completes the probation, if he completes the probation, the charges, I understand, are going to be reduced to a misdemeanor, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, if you're stuck with felony charges, you're going to have a hard time traveling, getting jobs, credit, the whole bit. So it's a pretty big deal for him to get it reduced to the misdemeanor. I imagine that was one of the reasons why he came back. He pays a $25,000 fine, gives up the computers and that were confiscated in the raid, $900 in cash, I guess.
He doesn't have real cash.
He's got Bitcoin. Well, they took 3 Bitcoin somehow or another. I don't know how they confiscated 3 Bitcoin, but I guess he had like a memory stick with his Bitcoin address on it or whatever.
I have a random.
Yeah,
I walked out of the break from the Dealer's Choice
last night,
and I looked to my right, and it's Brian Micon. I had no idea that this happened.
Oh, really?
Micon?
Oh, you didn't know about the deal?
Yeah. No.
What? And
I was like, what?
He told you about it, did he?
Yeah, no, I mean, I had no idea, like, none. I was just like, hey, how are you? He's like, hey, yeah, I'm back. Some things have changed. I'm not sure you kept up. I'm like, and then we actually talked about the tournament. So, like, I have friends of friends. I don't know him directly. And just before the raid back in December, I got an invitation to go to dinner with Micon and one of his friends as well. And we actually went to the D downtown to the steakhouse. And the reason why? They took Bitcoin.
No way.
We had ourselves quite a nice meal, and Mr. Micon gladly paid in Bitcoin.
Nice.
Directly for the meal.
Yeah. Well, that's obviously the Bitcoin volatility would have won and lost him a large amount of money, I'm sure, over the last couple of years. And depending on, if he hung on to it, if he kept it, if he was paid in it or whatever. One of the interesting things that came out of it was the FBI read all his Skype chat logs, and they decided to release the information that they discovered in those chat logs that Seals with Clubs was making between $10,000 and $12,000 a month. Which is interesting that they decided to just publicize that information. I mean, I guess maybe it has something to do with the amount of fine he paid or whatever, but I'm not sure that needs to be public. But for those that thought, Seals with Clubs was making giant sums of money, and let's face it, there was a lot of traffic on that site. So, with a site with that amount of traffic,
maybe that's an incorrect figure.
Maybe, again, it's just a Skype chat log. So,
and it's all Bitcoin.
Yeah, but. As you said, Joe, he did play in his first World Series of Poker tournament yesterday. So that was.
I was like seeing a ghost, honestly, because I had no idea.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Huh?
Right.
So should I call someone? No.
Not because he looks a little ghoulish.
Right. Yeah.
Well, no, not at all. I just did not expect to walk out at the same time from break
and see him
standing next to Brian Micon, considering the last thing I read was an MBG. So about his,
predicament,
legal issues.
Yeah. The Poker Hall of Fame nominations have opened, and my only note on this is yawn.
Big news.
Yeah,
big news, Adam.
It's something, you know, I'm not going to go over it again, but people who listen to this show know my view on the Poker Hall of Fame. It's basically, I wonder who Doyle is going to want to get in this year. So we'll see who he decides to get on the ballot, and this in the secret way that Harrah's decides who's going to be get put in the Hall of Fame.
Probably high stakes online poker players.
Who knows?
Shots fired.
We need an online poker Hall of Fame. I've said it before, but 2+2 needs to do it.
Yeah,
2+2 could do it.
It would be
an
so
online
much more
poker
fun.
Hall of Fame. Yeah, that's more interesting to me. But
for the people, by the people.
Yeah, well, we have stats for going back that can be a little more accurate than live stats, but for sure. All right, Joe, thanks so much. That's the in case you missed it part. We've got a whole bunch of viewer mailbag and stuff that's probably not going to be too interesting to you. I appreciate you stepping into the co-hosting chair. And,
yes, thank you very much.
And I hope everything goes well for you in the next little while.
I have one event left, so I got one more chance.
Main event?
Oh, actually, it's not on my schedule.
Wow.
It was just one of those things. Like, don't really at this time. The amount of bandwidth I have in my life is not taking a week off to play a $10,000 poker tournament.
Right.
But to play the 1500 stud 8 or better, that's July 2nd next week.
Good.
Is more my specialty and my game. So I got one more chance
with a revised schedule, so you won't be playing for 3 days till you cash.
That you know, I actually about that, and I know that was a huge spark, and you guys probably talked about that a bunch on here because it was pretty well ranted about.
Yep.
I will say I enjoyed the change, but walking into the 10-game dealer's choice and finding out at the table that the change had been made was bullshit. And I will say it again. I invited the change. I am fine with the change. The execution of the change was a blunder.
Just because you didn't read about it, or
no? It happened almost like 2 hours before that tournament started.
Oh, I see.
You don't do it like that.
Yeah.
People had already bought into the event. You take an event a week in advance, and you say, "We're gonna, this is where we're gonna make the change." You draw the line there, and you let people know. Mm-hmm. But I as far as I know, it happened almost within 2 hours of that event starting. It was that was the first event, which that's no.
Yeah, I agree.
I literally walked into that tournament expecting something and got something different. I bought something that I thought was this, and I got that.
And it was probably better, but that's not the point, right?
That's not the point.
Yeah, I understand.
So, you give me a day, give everybody a day or two. Give something less than a couple hours. So,
all right, well, bink that last tournament.
You have Pokercast Run Good on your side.
You got the Run Good coming.
Sweet.
There he is, Mr. Joe Tall. Thanks so much for stepping in for T. Appreciate that a lot. Hopefully T joins us next week. We're going to record on Wednesday, and the Pokercast has a special treat for everybody next week because that Pope is in town.
Oh.
And is going to come in, I believe, and throw the headset on for a little bit and chat on the Pokercast.
Huh?
Mr. Pope in town. All right, so let's get to 140 or less.
140 characters. That's it. I love hashtags. I love all of them.
Terrence Chan.
He needs more than 140 characters to express himself.
140 or less.
At Highland Fox, Hope at Dan Idema ships again. This was as he made the final table of PLO 6 max. Hope Dan Idema ships again so he can crack the top 10 in the Player of the Year.
Yeah, barely.
Would barely have cracked.
Top 15 if he wins two bracelets under 10K events. It's ridiculous score.
Got a good kick chuckle out of that.
Leo Norden.
Yeah.
A funky Swede that I met. I guess we'll talk about that in a bit. But I like to read his tweets in a Swedish accent. So,
okay.
Lasted 4 hands in 3K PLO. VPIP 75%. 0-1 pots. Good game.
Pots is TTS. I
don't think he was playing as conservative as some people in that tournament.
Yeah, he plays a lot of hands.
Yeah.
All right, you got the next one?
Phil Hellmuth. Thanks at Andre. I don't know what the whole thing is.
Andre
And then
Iguodala.
he puts in brackets just so everybody knows. MVP of the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
For this mention on at Jimmy Kimmel Live last night.
So this is hilarious. Andre Iguodala, who plays for the Warriors and was the MVP of the Finals, was on Kimmel.
Yeah.
And, of course, Helmuth is close with the owner of the Warriors, and there was a thread. There was actually a funny thread in NBG was, does Steph Curry know who Phil Helmuth is? Because if Helmuth is standing courtside, and there's a picture of him, and Curry's kind of looking at him strange. But anyway, Andre goes on Kimmel, and he says, I was in Vegas.
I've got it right here.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Somebody might steal them. Because I got things that no one would know about certain guys, and I know how to use it against them.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Even these guys probably don't know it about themselves.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, I know the tendencies, what they like to do before the game, the night before the game. You know.
You do?
Yeah, I know all the little dirt on the guys.
You're like the TMZ of the NBA going on.
Well, you got to know that. I think you got to know that. I had a really good conversation with Phil Hellmuth in Vegas, and he was talking about white magic.
Poker player?
Yeah, poker player. Talking about white magic, and guys get nervous in certain situations because, they don't live life right. So, there's karmic ways in the game that I know about guys, and I know it'll swing my way in those 50-50 balls.
Well,
the white magic has made it to the NBA and Jimmy Kimmel. Oh, my Lord.
How much did he have to pay?
It's funny. No, good. That's funny for Phil, and the fact that Andre takes it seriously is great, too. All right, you got the last one?
He can be pretty convincing, Phil can.
Phil can, yeah. White magic.
Oh, the last one here is someone tweeted at Lyman, which skill is more important for live cash game poker? A, play great while drunk, or B, talk a lot of trash without getting shot? Lyman replied, both are nice, unless you want to go nuts.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. I like that.
This is true. I've seen many people. I have yet to meet a guy. I mean, drunk people can be super unpredictable.
Yeah, of course.
But it's always funny when there's a guy who talks so much trash, but doesn't quite cross the line. Like it's just straight good-natured needling, and once it crosses that line, things get super awkward.
It does. Yeah, indeed. All right, so that's 140 or less for this week. We're not going to get into the mailbag stuff, but we're going to do the Rossco Report. And why don't...
We're in it.
Love it. Why don't we why don't you do the live hand first?
Okay.
From the world. So this is a hand from the cash games at the Rio, right?
Yes. I played these games quite a bit. Couple notes about these games. My first time playing cash in the States. It was great. I really enjoy the time rake. You are not paying nearly as much as you do in a flat drop game. The dealers were conversational. They had more personality than I'm used to. I like that.
Yeah, the dealers in the cash games generally are good because they make their money.
They're getting tips.
They do well, yeah.
Yeah.
They get to keep their own tips.
I really enjoyed those dealers. They were good. They were fast. I noticed that one thing I just thought of is people weren't wearing sunglasses as much as they do here.
Oh, is that right?
A lot more people wearing sunglasses, which also probably translates in the 1-2 and around those stakes games. There's probably worse players. Considering if you wear sunglasses, you're generally a fish.
Okay.
Or a fun player. Okay. So
setup.
this hand,
that's the setup.
Okay, so this hand I had lost, and I got back to about even, maybe a little bit less than even. I have 600 in front of me.
What's the What's the game?
This is 1-2 PLO
1-2
with a
PLO.
5 ring-in and an optional $10 straddle on the button or under the gun.
Mississippi
So
straddle.
obviously
Okay.
most people are Mississippi straddling. I don't think that was the case in this hand.
Okay.
So this guy who had been playing fairly tight to the vest, close to the vest, raises under the gun to 15.
You have $600 behind.
$600 behind.
You got him covered?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have King, Queen, 9, 8 with the King 9 of diamonds.
Okay.
And the Queen of hearts. I raise, or it's
How
raised.
is this a hand?
What do you mean?
That's what I want to know. Well, a guy raises under the gun. You still got a ton of people behind you, and you have not much of a hand. King, queen, 9-8. I think I'm folding that.
9-8?
I'm folding that like 100 times out of 100.
Really?
Yeah.
That hand plays really well.
How does it play really well? It's got a two-gapper.
If you get 10 jack on the board, you have like the biggest wrap ever.
If it comes king, 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 you got quads. It's hard to come 10 jack, right? I mean, plus the problem is you're going to make a lot of second nut hands because you have a two-gapper.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up making a lot of hands. I personally, I muck that hand all the time. But anyway, okay, so as played, let's play it as played. Raise under the gun to 15, you call.
I play a lot of these like gapped rundown hands.
Yeah, you're just going to get yourself in a bunch of marginal positions. Like, I would legitimately rather have 4, 5, 6, 7 than this hand. For sure.
That's true.
Okay, you call the 15.
Well, this hand gets quite interesting.
Okay.
It gets raised under the gun. I call. The very fun, like the most fun player ever on the button has everybody covered because he can't miss.
And he calls.
And he calls. The flop is ace, queen, 9 with 2 hearts.
So you flop bottom 2, and you have the queen of heart blocker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Under the gun leads for 40. I call. The fun player calls. The turn is the 4 of hearts, bringing in the flush.
Right.
Under the gun snap checks. I misread my hand. I think I have king 9 of hearts. I guess
even though the 9 of hearts is on board.
Well,
so the
no,
board
I just thought that I had.
You thought you had the hearts instead of.
I just thought I had hearts.
Yeah,
I remember this because I didn't check my cards and I lead for 80. And then I look
hang
at
on.
my card.
The board again is ace queen 9 flop. The flop is ace queen 9 2 hearts. The turn is the 4 hearts. Okay.
Yes. So
you don't look at your hand. You don't recheck your hand.
It did that thing. I don't do it very often where you think you have the hearts, and I lead right out for 80.
Okay.
The fun player calls on the button.
Okay.
Under the gun, reluctantly calls.
Okay. But okay, he calls. He doesn't like it.
He doesn't.
So he's got some sort of hand where he needs to fill up.
Yes. This is the read that I had. The river is a blank. It's like a 6 of clubs or something. So the board is ace of hearts, queen of diamonds, 9 of hearts, 4 of hearts, and 6 of clubs. The pot is $405.
Okay.
So I know what I have at this point. I read under the gun is weak. I had a really strong suspicion that he needed, maybe he had a set of aces or something, but he hated the board and he needed to improve with the board pairing or something alike.
Is he the kind of guy who, if he checks and you bet and the button folds, he's going to make a crying call with top set? Is he going to? I think that's a pretty big consideration here when you think about what you're going to do in the river, because he's last act. Now, if that guy that you read as the guy who's going to needs to fill up is on the button, it becomes a more difficult call for the guy on the button with the set because there's still somebody to act behind him, right?
Yeah.
So if he's closing the action after you bet, you got to maybe figure out if this guy is going to call you with top set.
I mean, with a flush on board and 2 people in the hand after the flush comes in, it would be.
You think he's going to fold if you bomb the river?
Yeah, I mean, I would fold.
But
I would fold any set.
Okay.
I mean, anyway, so what happens is this guy, I don't think I'm like very sure that he doesn't have a flush, and the button overcalled, and this guy's.
Hang on. Do you think that? By the way, have you realized at this point in the hand that you don't have a flush?
Yes.
Or
I said that.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
So you realize now you don't have a flush.
Yeah.
The button flatted the turn.
Yeah, the button flatted the turn, so I really don't think he has a nutted hand, and I represent a nutted hand by leading the turn, and it's checked to me. So I decide with my second nut blocker to bomb.
Okay. You bet how much of the pot?
I lead for 280 into 405.
Okay. Looks value-ish.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. That's definitely the sizing I would go for with the nuts, or the second nuts in this case. So
the second nuts, are you really gonna? I mean, are you gonna?
Yeah, I'm bombing.
You're bombing there.
The button has not portrayed.
He flatted.
He didn't portray any sort of nutted hand.
Okay.
And I don't think he's skilled enough to think of a line of flatting and then
letting you hang yourself.
Yeah, and then raising river.
Okay. So you bet 280. What does the button do?
The button tanks and tank. Well, first of all, I noticed that the under the gun guy had preloaded his cards. Like, I think he basically folded his hand and walked away. He wanted to.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's terrible. That is a giant. That I would be furious if I were you, because that offers you no protection in behind. Then the guy on the button knows he's closing the action.
I don't think he genuinely walked away, but
I mean, you can tell. If you can tell that the guy's folding, it's really that etiquette is terrible.
Yeah. So basically, the very fun player tanks, and he has his chips all racked up. He takes the chips out. He puts the chips back in.
Does he say anything?
No, he's just like...
He's just trying to decide to call with like a 9 high flush or something.
Yeah, or in this case, a 7 high flush.
Okay.
And he calls. And I lose, and...
He wins with the 7 high flush.
With the 7 high flush that I would have folded. But...
all right.
What do you think about this line? And
as played, and it's tough. I mean, if you're
playing,
like
I'm not unhappy with my read of the situation. I feel like I had a decent lock on the read, but I didn't have a good read on my opponent, who is incapable of folding.
Well, it's not just like you're playing 1-2. It's not like you're playing 5-10 or 10-20 PLO, where guys will fold hands like that if they can put you on a hand. These guys just click call button, right? That's what I was saying. Even the guy in the small blind with the top set might end up calling if that guy folds. Obviously, clearly you had a read that he wasn't going to do that in the river. But here's the thing: in games where you're expecting your opponent, when you're betting like the set, like let's say you had second nut. You had queen high flush there, and you got the 7 high to call. But is he sophisticated enough to think? Let's say he's got the king of heart blocker. He's got the bear king of hearts, and you bet 280 on the river, and he's got the king of hearts. He's going to have a hard time believing you, because the only hand in a 1-2 game that's going to bet that huge bet on the river, and this is a big pot for a 1-2 game, is the king high flush. Yeah. So he's not going to believe you, right? So now he can shove or do some sort of weird thing, be at the blocker. Right.
Honestly, I really don't give this guy credit for he would probably fold turn with a bear king of hearts. I don't think he's not sophisticated enough to flat and then raise river. Maybe raise turn, but I just fold turn. I'll just fold if he raises on turn.
I don't know. I mean, again, I probably wouldn't play the hand pre. As played, it's tough to get people to fold in 1-2 games. I think one of the things you want to exploit in the 1-2 game is the fact that he's calling you with the 7 high flush, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to, like you said, let's say you're value betting the queen high flush there. Well, you got called.
Yeah.
So he's going to call with less than the 7 high flush. That probably wasn't the bottom of his range.
Yeah.
So the best way to make money in those games probably isn't trying to blast them off hands, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's I was a little bit on tilt at that point. I was trying to push people around.
All right, you got a couple boom hands. I'm assuming this is from the session that the all-nighter you pulled last night.
Yeah. Actually, there's one hand that I wanted to talk about from the Rio, because
cool.
After I got really stuck in 1-2, and I decided to take the mathematically correct route and move up stakes. And
where they respect your raises.
Yeah, so I sat with 500 at 510.
Okay.
Or no, it was 5-5. Basically 510 with a 25 straddle on the button.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I sit down, and I play a few hands, and I don't even really think I saw any flops, so I still have like 590 or so.
Okay.
And this hand comes up. It was a pretty crazy hand where...
You're not very deep compared to everybody else, right?
No, I'm like...
You're super short.
So super short.
Yeah, okay.
Like, people have 5K effective, 2.5 to 5K.
Sure.
So this hand comes up where... This new guy, there was a guy who didn't have a seat card, and he took the seat at the one full table, and the floor man came by and kicked him off to make room for this new guy who just sat down. And he was very talkative. I thought he was action, or he was at least giving off the image that he was an action player. So he sits down in the button, and I am in the cutoff.
Okay.
And he straddles to 25 on the button.
Okay.
And it gets limped like 6 ways. It gets
To you.
like 6 ways, and I look down at ace, deuce, 7, double suited.
Oh, man.
Diamonds and hearts.
You can't raise enough to dissuade people from calling.
Yeah, so I take the line, which I've talked about in the past, and this guy's straddled. He's his first hand. He's talkative. I had a good feeling that he would raise the button, and if he didn't, then I would take a flop and reevaluate.
What happens?
It's not a big deal. So I limp to 25. Boom. He makes it 75 on the button.
Yeah. Perfect.
I'm licking my chops at this point. Gets called around every spot.
So this is a dream spot for short stacking PLO.
Oh, yeah.
So when when people talk about rat holing and the Zoom games online, being able to play a short stack nonstop is a huge edge in PLO, and this is exactly why. Because there's so much dead money in there, and now you're getting a huge price if you can isolate against somebody.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
So it's 75 to or 50 more to you. You raise.
It's 50 more to me. It comes back around. Obviously, I insta-pot and make a whole bunch of people unhappy.
Yeah, of course.
Which is lovely.
You short stack bastard.
Yeah. So it gets back around to me. I pot. The pot's like 600 at this point. I'm all in.
You're all in.
Easily.
What does the button do?
Button repots.
Oh, of course.
He's in for 1,000.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, ugh, fuck, checking their cards in. And then the guy to my right is just like, ugh, I guess I call.
Oh, really?
He's like, it's like so much money in there. And
you priced him in.
Yeah, so we got this 3-way pot with another 400 dead in the middle.
Tell me what the hands are.
The action guy to my left did not show his hand.
Oh,
the guy to my right had King Jack 10 5 or something.
Oh,
with one suit. He
okay.
was just like,
he's just like,
call
let's
it,
gamble,
whatever. Yeah, he's like, yeah. So,
what's the flop?
The flop is 6-6-10.
6-6-10.
Yeah,
pretty darn good flop.
Pretty good. Turn is gin.
You have ace what?
I have ace deuce 7.
Okay.
So, the turn is gin. It's another 6.
Perfect.
The guy let out a little squeal, and I thought he had it.
Oh, really?
But so I take down it's one of the larger pots I've played up to this point.
Yeah, get even in one fell swoop.
Nice, and then I come back and go to bed. So and then we go to the airport 3 hours later.
Did you just cash up, and did you get the dirty looks when you?
I didn't even look at anybody in the eyes.
Just said, "I'm out of here."
I just took it.
You played one
away.
hand, and I'm gone.
Yeah, I played one hand. They were just like, "You fucking motherfucker."
They're probably happy you left, actually.
Yeah,
so.
because I was just that was my strategy. So I was happy that happened, and I left Vegas. I almost left with almost no money.
Really?
Well, no, all the American cash that I brought. So instead of these boom players, this is running kind of long.
Yeah.
But I wanted to tell my story.
Let's do that. Yeah.
About how I more PLO.
So this is your last night in Vegas.
PLO awesomeness. This is one of. Yeah.
Or was it the second to last night?
It was the night Dan was. It was the night before he got heads up.
Right.
It was it was the Thursday or something.
Yeah, second to last night.
I've been a big fan of Joe Ingram's podcast.
Sure, Chicago Joey.
For months, and we've been in contact. So I went to meet him, and me and Adam went to the Bellagio buffet and ate. Well, I ate a shitload of food. We both had plates of crab legs.
Yeah.
Plates of crab legs, plates of prime rib, plates of tacos.
Oh, yeah.
I had sushi, and then I had 4 desserts.
You did have 4 desserts. That was impressive.
And then I walked to Vidara, and I say goodbye to Adam. I say thank you for the 5,000 calories, and I and then I walk over to Vidara, and Joe Ingram was with. These names might not be familiar to all people, but they're the online PLO Euro wizards.
Okay.
There's Odd Oddson.
So this is they're having a group drink, a party.
They're just having a drink.
They're out in the town.
Vidara.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we didn't really go out on the town.
Okay.
We went from one casino to the other. So it's Odd Oddson and Lauti and Iseldrun, Leo Norden, who we talked about before, and a guy named Georgie, who was I think his name was Blue Job. He was in 2 months, 2 million.
Okay.
Yeah. So I meet up with these guys. It is it's basically the high stakes online cash game
Wizards
that it was just like exactly how I imagined it. They are CCRing for their first like 2K bill.
Okay.
One guy drops like 20K in like notes out of a garbage bag, or
He has
like
20K in a garbage bag.
Yeah, he had more than that, but he like reached in to like pay for a drink and dropped like 2 bundles on the floor. they're all like super Euro, and I'm pretty tall, right? I'm like 6'4".
Yeah,
and I was the second or third tallest person in this group.
Wow.
Joey's like at least 6 feet, and he was the shortest person in this group out of like 7 of us. It was all like these gigantic Viking Scandinavian PLO crushers.
Yeah.
So we walk over to Aria. They do the same thing. They order a bunch of bottles and stuff. And I heard some pretty epic online degeneracy stories. Huge wins and losses that I would never understand. So that was pretty awesome. They do the same thing. They run up a huge tab, and then we're like, we're gonna go check out the poker room. So me and Joey and Leo walk over there, and Leo is he crushes like 10-20 online.
Okay,
he does very well. He's a Swedish guy named Iseldrum, and he walks up and he's just like blackout drunk at this point. They gave us like a whole bunch of like Grey Goose that they didn't finish in takeout cups. He walks up to the poker desk at Aria, and he's like, "Do you have any pot limit Omaha?" And they're like, "Yeah. What stakes do you want?" He's like, the biggest game." So they're like, "Well, we have like a 10, 25, 50 game over here." And he's like, "Okay." And he like stumbles over. I have to like guide him to his seat in this big game.
Okay.
He just throws 3 Bellagio flags on the table, buys in for as much as he can, like 15K, gets some change, and then proceeds to pot every hand blind, out of
awesome.
position, straddle every hand he possibly can in any position, just like not just blind raising every hand, and profits. He's up like 11 or 12,000 in the first like 10 minutes.
Wow.
Goes out, smokes a couple cigarettes, gives me some advice of playing in the cutoff, gives me some PLO career advice, goes back in, and yeah, it was pretty awesome watching him crash. He lost one big hand at the end, but still profited several thousand. Yeah.
Nice.
It was
good fun.
It was really good.
So your overall Vegas experience was positive.
It was amazing.
You came back with more money than you went with?
A little bit.
That's a little bit is better than 99% of the people. So,
yeah, this is true. And then the next day we woke up and we went and watched Dan win a bracelet. So it was like an epic last weekend in Vegas.
That was a lot of fun.
I'm very happy that happened.
All right, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. We're like I said, we're going to get to some mailbag and some shout-outs next week. And please send them in. Right now we have the Poker Hand Madness is in the final stages over at the 2+2 forum in the Pokercast area. Our fantastic mod, congratulations, by the way, to Johnny Douglas, who just had another child, and he's running the Poker Hand Madness contest for us. We need your votes. We need you guys to participate. Please head on over there. While you're there, post in the Where You're Listening To From thread. We're going to get to some of those next week as well. But definitely vote and take part in our little contest. We'd love to hear from you. That's going to do it for this week. Thanks to Ross for trekking all the way out to my house. Joe Tall for stepping in to co-host in Terrence's absence. Thanks to all our guests. I'm going to start at the top. Terrence did stop in for a little while to give us
some of the best things that I've ever put in my mouth.
Some of those. And Dan Idema, my brother, after shipping his third bracelet, that was fun to talk to him. Thanks to Lee Jones for joining us, tackling a couple of difficult subjects this week. Thanks for that. And Mr.
You're going surfing on the internet.
We did. Mr. Jean Robert Bellande for joining at the last minute. That was awesome. Really enjoyed that interview as well. Thanks to you out there for listening to the show. Wouldn't be a show. We wouldn't do it without you. Really appreciate that. And we will talk to you next week on Wednesday night.
Yes, sir. Number 3. Number 4.
All right, joining us today is the Schwartz household poker champion, Mr.
He's the second best poker player in the family.
His sister's pretty good too. This is my son, Rudy.
Hi.
So talk about your poker strategy when we're playing the family poker game, Rudy. What's your favorite move? What do you like to do?
Bluff.
You do like to bluff. You're always all in, and it's great because anytime you check to Rudy, he's all in. It instantly just shoves all in, right? That's what you do? That's your style?
Sometimes,
okay. So, hey, I want to ask you about your story about going to the hockey game.
Oh.
Can you tell us that whole story?
Fine. So, I was at this game against Florida.
With?
Vancouver versus Florida.
You? Yeah.
My uncle, Dan Idema.
Yeah. He
just won a poker bracelet thing.
This week, you're right.
And it was in January.
Yeah.
So at the end, Luongo was coming out on the
Vancouver
ice.
against Florida, right?
Yeah. And at the end, Luongo was coming out onto the ice. He held up his stick.
Yeah.
He pointed it at me. I had this Canucks mask on.
Yeah.
It was fully Canucks, and I had a lack jersey.
Yeah. And you were in the third row, right near the glass, right?
Yeah. I was I just ran up because I wanted to go and see Luongo because I was against the glass, and I was just.
And what happened?
And then he was holding his stick, and he pointed it at me. He pushed it over the boards. My Uncle Dan took it because there was this other kid who was trying to grab it. He was he was trying to grab it.
But Luongo had pointed at you.
Yeah.
Not that guy.
Yeah.
So
and so he was trying to grab it, and then my Uncle Dan gave it to me, and then the kid who was over there, he was actually crying at the end of the game because he didn't get the stick.
He wasn't pointing. If Luongo was pointing at the kid, you would have let the kid have it, right?
Yes,
but
I would.
He was pointing at you because you had your goalie mask on, and because you are a hockey goalie, right?
Yeah, I am. I play for the Outlaws and stuff.
You do? And who's your favorite goalie?
Probably Luongo.
Yeah, because you have...
It's a huge win.
It was. You have a Luongo growth chart in our house, right?
Yeah.
Where you measure how tall you are against the full-size life chart.
I haven't measured myself in a while. I'm 4'9" or something.
You're tall now, yeah. For sure. So you got the stick. That was in January. Has the stick ever left your bedroom since January?
No.
Is it mounted on the wall?
It's in my closet.
It's hidden, so nobody can find it. Okay. He slept with it the first night in his bed. He is very happy about that.
That's sweet.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you telling the story.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us. The 2+2 Pokercast has been presented to you by the Pokerstars VIP